Hello everyone. Before we start tonight's story, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank you for being here, listening and accompanying me through each story. Every view, every comment, every like or share from you is a valuable source of motivation that helps me continue telling. If you love mystery stories, don't forget click like, subscribe to the channel, and comment your thoughts below. I always read them all and really appreciate it. And now, let's start a new story together. A story about tranquility, seemingly peaceful, but containing unexpected things. I came to this house because I want peace. I don't care about its age, or that it stands alone on top of barren hill, where there is only wind and dry grass. All I need is a quiet space to work, to write the book I have been cherishing for many years. I am a researcher of strange phenomena, and I think this is the ideal place for me to focus and find the answers I have been looking for. The house was miles away from the city, and the nearest neighbors were deserted houses without a soul in sight. I knew this would be a great place to escape the hustle and bustle of life, a place where I could focus on my work. But little did I know that this house had its own purpose, and that purpose would gradually reveal itself. As soon as I arrived, the sky was filled with clouds, and the wind was blowing strongly. A cold feeling surrounded me as soon as I opened the car door. The road leading to the house is bumpy and difficult to walk, and the house in front of me is not as big as I thought. Its paint is peeling, windows are shattered and some places are patched with wooden planks. I could see cracks in the foundation and the porch was leaning, but I didn't mind. I told myself it was just an old house in need of repair. But, when I walked through the door, I felt something unusual. The small noises around me made me feel confused. Under the dim light, the air in the house was stuffy as if it hadn't been opened for a long time, with clouds of dust floating around, creating a feeling of oldness and desolation. Everything in the house seems forgotten, from the small chandelier in the dining room to items that have been worn away over time. I started unpacking in the living room. The lights were still on but flickers every now and then. I think it's just a problem with the electrical system. As I was arranging some books, I heard a soft sigh, like a whisper from the wall behind me. There was nothing scary at that time, I just thought it was the wind blowing through the cracks. However, the strange feeling started when I lay down to rest. The whispers started again, this time clearer. The sound of breathing, little by little, came down from the ceiling to the door of the room, making it impossible for me to close my eyes. I felt a chill in my chest, my hands were cold. I pulled the blanket up, trying to calm the feeling of fear, but I couldn't take my eyes off the shadows in the room. Each time there was a flash of lightning, faint shapes appeared and then disappeared instantly. The next morning, I woke up with a tingling feeling in my heart. The breakfast I prepared was simple, coffee and a few snacks, but the feeling of anxiety still didn't let go. This house seemed to have some hidden meaning, and I decided to explore more closely. When I opened the closet and searched the nooks and crannies of the house, I discovered a small space, hidden behind a door. Inside is a strange room with ancient paintings, full of dust and traces of time. Everything in this room seems to be kept a secret. An old wooden table with a small box on it. When I opened that box, a cold wind suddenly blew out, as if the house was testing me, testing my curiosity. Inside the box were old items, old books, and some papers with strange symbols that I had never seen before. Sometimes, the things we seek are the most dangerous things. And in this house, everything has a secret, an untold story. Everything becomes clearer when night comes. The whispers of breathing are no longer the wind, not an imagination anymore. This house is not just an abandoned place. It has a soul, and that soul is trying to communicate with me. What I discover, what I find, could change everything. And maybe, I have entered an area where no one can retreat. I continued to feel the coldness from the dark space behind the large cabinet. After pushing the cabinet open, a narrow gap appeared, a passage leading into darkness. The air coming out of there carried an old, damp smell, as if the place hadn't been touched in a long time. I shined my flashlight at the entrance, seeing only vast darkness and rough stone walls, with faint symbols on them, like ancient drawings that I couldn't understand. The stone floor beneath my feet was cold and echoed with footsteps. This space is unlike any part of the house I have explored before. My footsteps echoed throughout the hallway, echoing strangely, as if someone was watching me from afar. I walked forward, turning left as my instincts urged me to, hoping to find a more comfortable path. The deeper you go into the hallway, the more obvious the symbols on the wall become. There are circles, horizontal lines, and seemingly irregular scratches. The feeling of pressure in my ears grew stronger, as if the air was thicker, heavier. I feel like something is suffocating me. Suddenly, a whisper came from behind me. I turned quickly and shined my flashlight in that direction, but only saw dense darkness. There was no one, just empty space swallowing me whole. Cold sweat broke out on my back, but I couldn't stop. I kept going, even though my hands were shaking, and a feeling of fear sent chills down my spine. The hallway splits into two paths, one turns sharply to the right, and the other leads down. I chose the path leading down, thinking it might take me to an ancient cellar, where I could discover more of the secrets of this house. But as I walked down, the whispering started again, closer, clearer, as if someone was following my every step. My heart pounded, my breath shortened. It felt like the air became thicker and thicker, drops of cold sweat fell from my forehead. I stopped, leaned against the cold stone wall, feeling shivers run down my spine. A drop of water fell onto my shoulder, possibly from a crack in the ceiling, but when I looked up, I saw only another layer of darkness. I couldn't see anything but the cold and darkness. That feeling, like something was standing quietly behind me, even though I couldn't see any shape. My hands shook, my stomach tightened. I told myself, I'm just imagining things, and tried to go back to the entrance. But as soon as I stepped back, the feeling that someone was watching me, following me at the same pace, became clearer and clearer. Weak footsteps sounded behind me. Every time I stopped, they stopped too. My skin broke out in patches, and my heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I couldn't stand it anymore. I hurriedly walked faster, almost jumping out of the room entrance. As I slid the cabinet back into place, a cold wave swept over me. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. I stood there for a minute, my legs shaking, letting my heart beat slow. Then I examined the house blueprints I'd found in a drawer in the dining room. It does not show any hallways or extra rooms. At this point I realized that this house was a lot more complicated than I initially imagined. And I couldn't help but feel a strange attraction, a pull that made me want to go back to that place, even though it scared me. There's something in this house that wants me to find out its secret. Over the next few days, I focused on my daytime writing, researching supernatural occurrences and ancient rituals, even though strange sounds kept echoing in my head. The lights flicker constantly, sometimes I have to turn them off and use a flashlight or candle. I tried calling the electrician, but the phone connection was weak, only got voicemail, and he never called back. The whispers continued. They came from behind the walls, from the ceiling, always vaguely, as if they were whispering about me. Sometimes, I come across a word that I think I hear, and one time, I feel as if I hear my name. That feeling made me numb, my heart was pounding, my palms were sweaty. I wondered if I was being haunted by my fantasies, but every time the whispers got too close, I turned around, expecting to see someone behind me, but there was no one. After a week, I couldn't resist anymore, so I decided to explore the hidden corridors again. I found another entrance behind a loose board in the upstairs hallway. This entrance leads to a narrow staircase, descending between cold stone walls. I moved carefully, shining my flashlight, trying not to touch the cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. The stairs creaked under my feet, each step echoing in the quiet space of the house. I couldn't stop, my steps were heavy as I walked through the narrow hallway. The space seemed to be just enough for my body. Two rough, cold stone walls pressed against my body, Every step made me clearly feel the tightness and crampedness of this place. The floor was a bit damp, feeling cold as if I was walking through an ancient tomb. I noticed symbols carved deep into the stone, not paint, but clear cuts, as if made with some sharp tool. These symbols are unlike anything I have ever seen. A strange feeling came over me as I passed them, as if they had some power I couldn't explain. Along the hallway, I passed a small room with a low ceiling, just enough space to accommodate an old table. I approached, the light from my weak flashlight illuminating a few faded pages lying on the table. These pages were covered with symbols, like the marks I had seen on the wall. The edges of the paper were torn and some parts were unreadable. Still, I could see that they were diagrams, possibly instructions for ancient rituals, the language of which I could not understand. A feeling of fear shot through me as I tried to get closer. Suddenly, my flashlight flickered and then came back on, and I saw the shadow of the table moving. It feels like someone is standing behind it. My heart was beating so loudly that I could hear each beat in my ears. There was a lump in my throat. I felt like something was standing right behind me, breathing softly into my ear. A chill ran down my spine, my muscles tensed as if I were standing between two worlds. I turned around, aiming my flashlight at the space behind the desk, but there was no one there. There was only darkness, only terrifying silence. But I feel like something is still watching me, waiting. I can't stand this feeling anymore. My scalp tingled, a feeling of sadness and fear engulfed me. I rushed out of that room, ran back up the narrow stairs, back into the hallway. I closed the board, trying to find peace again. My hand pressed against my chest, feeling my heart pounding, as if it were about to burst in my chest. I stood there, panting, sweat pouring down my forehead, trying to calm down. This house is more than just a place to live. It has another purpose, a strange attraction that makes me have to find its secret. The whispers in the night are no longer as simple as before. No more just random sounds. They seemed sad, urgent, as if someone was calling for my help. The following nights, while I was drifting off to sleep, I heard gentle voices echoing from within the wall. They have a pleading tone, as if asking for help from someone. Strangely, there was no feeling of hostility in those whispers, only desperation. I felt like someone was calling me, but I couldn't do anything. When passing through the living room or standing in the kitchen, I always feel something moving quickly across the threshold. A figure passed me, as if it had just left. Each time, I stopped breathing, my heart pounded, but when I turned around, there was nothing. The movements were just reflections in the dim light, but I couldn't deny the feeling that I was being watched. My concentration gradually disappeared. This house occupies my entire mind. Even though I tried to write, all my thoughts returned to the hidden hallways I couldn't leave. I feel like I'm drawn, pulled towards those paths, even though they bring fear to me every day. Every day I discovered new openings, one in the dining room, one in the bedroom, and they all connected together to form a network of secret passages. Some lead to cramped rooms filled with trash, things the previous owner had left behind. Others lead to dead ends, while some have ladders going up or down to different floors. It felt like I was lost in a maze. The walls around me were always filled with strange symbols. They don't mean anything, but sometimes I get chills when I look at them. I couldn't resist the desire to learn about this house. Even though I knew that the deeper I went, the more I would be drawn into a world with no way out, I still couldn't stop. As time passed, I began to lose my sense of reality, and days and nights became blurred. I slept more during the day, but at night I wandered the corridors, going from one way to another just to hear whispers, mysterious noises coming from somewhere in the darkness. On a dark night, the electricity in the house turned off completely. I lit the candle and walked around, checking the circuit breaker in the basement. But nothing changes, nothing can be fixed. I gave up and sat in the living room, a small candle next to me. In the dim darkness, voices echoed from the wall. This time, they were gentler, as if inviting me to join them. I couldn't escape that feeling, a strong urge made me unable to leave. The house did not want me to be a victim. It didn't chase me away, but seemed to coax me. It wanted me to know about these tunnels, wanted me to understand the symbols, the strange symbols I saw. And I know, whether I want to or not, I can't leave. This house has taken over me. The next day, the space in the house became even more silent and heavy. It felt like there was an invisible presence everywhere. Even though I couldn't explain it, I could still feel the strangeness of this house, like it was drawing me to something I couldn't resist. Every night, I feel the urge to return to the hidden corridors where I have found mysterious secrets. They are like another world, a world that I cannot easily leave. Every time I walked into those hallways, I heard whispers, clearer and clearer, as if something was calling to me from the end of these dark passages. I no longer remember how long I've been in this house. Time seemed to stop, as each night passed like the previous ones, and I wandered the halls unable to stop. Even though I knew it was scaring me, I couldn't contain my curiosity. The voices in the night changed, they were no longer just whispers, but became calls for help, voices full of urgency and pain. One night, as I was sitting in the living room, the light from a small candle seemed insufficient to dispel the darkness. A heavy feeling surrounded me, and I heard strange voices again, this time from right next to me. They no longer came from the walls or the ceiling, but as if they were right in the room. Those whispers were clearer now, as if someone was standing right behind me, their breath lingering in the air. "Stay, don't go," I heard it clearly. I turned around, but there was no one standing behind me. There was only darkness, and the feeling that an invisible force was monitoring my every move. I can't bear it anymore. The feeling of suffocation was as if there was a shackle tight on my chest, making it impossible for me to breathe. I stood up quickly, not daring to look around, just wanting to escape this room. At this moment, I realized something strange. Even though I didn't want to, I always felt attracted, drawn back to those hallways. Every time I went in, even though I was filled with fear, I found myself unable to leave. The symbols on the wall, those strange symbols, seemed to be leading me to something important. I feel like I have become a part of this house, that the house is not just a physical space but an entity, a living creature with a desire to be understood and explored. Over the following nights, I continued to walk down hidden corridors. Each time, I discovered a new passage, an old door or a loose board hidden behind the wall. It all leads to a network of deep corridors, a maze with no end. Some passages lead to small rooms filled with old objects and discarded trash, but there are other passages, which lead to increasingly strange spaces. While walking through a long hallway, I suddenly realized I had entered an empty room, except for an old wooden chair and a small table. On the table was a book, its cover was worn and faded. I opened the book, and as soon as the first page was turned, a cold wave ran down my spine. The words there were not in a language I knew, but there was a strange familiarity, as if I had seen these characters somewhere before. Feeling more and more stressed, I realized that something very important was waiting for me. It felt like this house not only wanted me to explore it, but also wanted me to understand what happened here, the secrets it hid. It felt like there was a force controlling me, urging me to do something that I couldn't explain. Every time I hesitated, a painful feeling ran through my body, as if this house was in pain, waiting for me. The following nights, the voices in the wall changed again. They are not just cries for help anymore. The whispers became invitations, as if the house was calling me to join another world. I can feel this urge every time I walk down the hall. The blurry figures passing by, the inexplicable feelings made me feel that I had surpassed the limits of reality, entering another space, where the laws of time and space no longer existed. I no longer have a clear sense of time. The house had swallowed it all. I don't know how long I've been here, but the feeling of being drawn into those dark hallways grows stronger and stronger. The whispers in the space became clearer, like there were thousands of invisible eyes watching my every step. I feel like I'm lost in a dream, a nightmare I can't wake up from. Every night, when the lights in the house go out, I have to light candles and grope in the dark. The feeling of fear has gradually become a part of me, as if I have merged with this space. The hidden hallways started to feel familiar, like a maze with no way out that I couldn't stop. Even though I don't want to, I can't escape this urge. They are like traps waiting for me, leading me into dark places that I cannot explain. One night, as I was walking through a narrow hallway, suddenly, the light from the candle in my hand began to flicker violently. Every time the light flashed, I felt a figure move past, just fleeting for a moment. Each time, my heart pounded, and I had to take a deep breath to keep from passing out. I couldn't understand why, but it felt like an invisible force was taking over me, permeating every cell in my body, making me lose control. Suddenly, a loud noise rang out from ahead. An old window was broken, glass was thrown out, making a scary noise in the dark night. I turned around, just in time to see a dark shadow rushing past in front of me, so fast that I didn't have time to react. I stood still, closed my eyes and begged myself not to be a victim of the inevitable. But when I opened my eyes, I was no longer standing in the hallway. I was in another room, a room I had never seen before. Every wall around me was filled with strange symbols, like ancient runes I had seen. But this time, they are not carved on stone, but drawn on human skin. Living, wrinkled human skin is expanding and contracting under those black paint marks. The drawings look as if they are changing shape, as if they are alive, flowing. I can't move. My body froze, every cell in my body seemed trapped in extreme fear. These bizarre images began to blend together, forming a vague shape, an entity moving through space. It had no face, but I felt its presence, as if it were watching my every move. The whispering sounded again, this time not just from the wall, but from the drawings on the skin itself. Those voices were no longer softly pleading, but were babbling, hissing as if being tortured. "Stay, don't go, see them." I felt a cold, invisible hand reach out from the darkness and touch my shoulder. That feeling was so cold that it paralyzed every feeling in my body. I turned around, but only saw a shadowy shadow, as if it was standing right behind me. I turned around quickly, but still saw nothing but empty space. My heart was beating wildly, my limbs felt like they were about to collapse, but I couldn't escape. This house has locked me down. I kept moving, but my steps became heavier and heavier. The air in the house became thick, as if I was moving in another space, a space that did not belong to reality. The walls around me seemed to be changing, expanding, and contracting, as if they were alive too. Strange noises rang out from the surrounding rooms, as if there were thousands of people running in the dark. The sounds of footsteps, whispers, and steady breathing made me shiver. A door opened before my eyes. I couldn't resist the urge to enter. Behind the door is a large, but empty room. On the floor, I saw a strange circle, drawn in blood. In the center of the circle, there was a large mirror, reflecting my image. But when I looked there, I didn't see my face. Instead there was an image of someone else, a man, his face blurred, but his eyes blank, lifeless. Suddenly, I heard a soft laugh from behind me, then a voice said, "Finally, you have arrived." I turned around, but saw nothing. The space around me became hazy, as if I was slowly melting into it. I can't differentiate between what is real and what is virtual. I'm caught in a vortex with no way out, and I know I won't be able to leave. The house has grabbed me, and it won't let me go. Everything in this house changes. Every step I take, every movement I make no longer belongs to me. It felt like I was no longer a person, but a ghost, lost in a surreal world where reality and illusion mixed together. That night, as I stood in the large room, facing the strange mirror, a cold feeling hit me like a wave. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw my image gradually fade away, replaced by other faces, people I didn't know. They looked at me with empty, lifeless eyes, as if they had died a long time ago. Small, soft laughter echoed from the room, seemingly from ghosts surrounding me, watching me, waiting for something. Suddenly, the mirror reflected not only my image but also a horrifying scene. The whole room I was standing in suddenly changed. Somewhere in the mirror, I saw myself standing in a dark room, without any light. Whispers began to ring in my ears. They were no longer meaningless sounds, but desperate calls. "Help me, help us," the plea rang out from the darkness, as if someone was imprisoned in the mirror, imprisoned by this very house. I can't breathe. The suffocating feeling in my chest made me unable to breathe. Suddenly, I felt a cold, invisible hand reach out from the mirror and touch my face. The cold penetrates the skin, deep to the bone marrow. I wanted to scream, but my throat was tight and I couldn't make a sound. Everything around me began to twist, as if the space in this room was distorting, melting, and merging together. The walls around me seemed to be collapsing, as if they no longer existed. "We can't get out." A voice whispered in my ear, making me jump. I turned around but didn't see anyone. The space around me began to change, turning into a maze with no escape. Old walls became doors, dark corridors, all leading to incomprehensible places. I turned around and looked towards the mirror. The mirrors no longer reflected me. Instead there was a gloomy space, a small, dark room, with strange symbols drawn on the wall in blood. It felt like I had entered another dimension, where time and space no longer had meaning. The laughter, the prayers, the whispers, they all seemed to be speaking to me, urging me to go in there. A terrible feeling enveloped me, as if I were being sucked into the mirror, into the darkness within it. Ghostly figures from the mirror began to move, they reached out towards me, pulling me into their world. Suddenly, I no longer had control over my body. I felt a strong force pulling me away, as if I had become a part of this house, a part of the invisible creatures in the dark. I ran, but I didn't know where to run. My every step echoed in the dark hallway, but no place was safe. Every time I turned around, I saw dark figures following me, empty eyes that never left me. Then, a door opened. An empty room, only old wooden chairs and a table. But on the table there was a box. This box was not like the usual boxes I had seen in this house. It had a black coating, as if it were made of something strange, something not of this world. I couldn't help but open that box, as if I couldn't resist the urge. As soon as I opened the box, a cold breeze blew from inside, so strong that it made me fall back. I looked inside and saw eyes. Thousands of eyes, they were wide open, staring at me. These eyes are not alive, they are just empty eye sockets, but they have an invisible power that makes me unable to take my eyes off them. They seem to be speaking to me, asking me to do something that I couldn't understand. "You have come, now you will stay." A voice rang out from the box, not an actual sound, but an echo from the depths of darkness. A feeling of extreme fear welled up inside me. I wanted to escape, but my body didn't listen to me anymore. I feel trapped in this very house, imprisoned in a space with no way out. The eyes in the box began to move, closing and opening again, and I heard them breathing, as if they were laughing at me. This house doesn't want me to be just a passerby. It didn't want me to simply leave. It wanted me to be a part of it, wanted me to be a soul forever imprisoned in the darkness. And I understand one thing very clearly: once I step into this house, I can't leave anymore. I don't know how much time I've spent in this house. The sense of time has faded, everything is like a spiral that cannot be escaped. This house has begun to swallow me whole, and I no longer know who I am. Am I dreaming, or have I really fallen into a nightmare with no way out? After I opened the box, everything seemed to have changed. This house is no longer an old, strange place, but a living creature, full of strength and desire. It wants me. And I know, I can't leave. Whether I wanted it or not, I was caught up in its game. It didn't just want me to stay, it wanted me to be a part of it. Every night, when darkness comes, whispers begin to echo. They were no longer gentle calls for help, but desperate calls, hoarse sounds, as if there were thousands of souls trapped in this house. Whispers, sighs, and then savage laughter rang out, creating a strange sound that made me unable to stop. It was as if they were toying with me, testing my patience. One night, I couldn't sleep. Even though my body was tired, my mind couldn't stop thinking about the hallways, the dark rooms, the strange drawings, and the calls from the darkness. I feel like something is looking at me, watching me, but not from the outside but from inside this house. Maybe I'm not me anymore. I decided to enter the corridors again, even though I knew I was embarking on a dangerous journey. But I can't stop. This house has trapped me, and I can't escape. I held a flashlight, walked into the narrow passages, breathing in the cold, damp air. This time, I wasn't just walking in eerie silence. Small noises seemed to be amplified in the quiet space, each footstep and my breathing sounded like explosions. As I walked through a narrow hallway, I realized that I was not simply entering darkness, but into another world, one that I could no longer control. An old room opened before my eyes, but this time, I couldn't open the door. Even though I tried, the door seemed to be stuck and couldn't be opened. A strange feeling rose inside me, as if this door didn't want me to enter. Suddenly, I felt someone standing behind me. The feeling was strong and clear, as if an invisible hand was reaching out from the darkness. I turned around, but saw nothing, only empty space, but in the air, I could feel its presence. The feeling was so strong that I couldn't bear it any longer. I turned around and ran, but my legs were no longer steady. It felt like something was pulling me back, as if I was being drawn to an irresistible force. I ran through the hallways, not knowing where I was going, but I couldn't stop. Strange figures began to appear, passing by me quickly, like cold winds blowing in the dark night. I couldn't see clearly, but I knew that someone was following me, and they had no intention of letting me go. My steps became more rapid, faster, as if there was something I couldn't wait for. When I turned around, a tall figure was standing right behind me. I couldn't see the face, but only cold, soulless eyes staring at me. I wanted to scream, but my throat no longer made any sound. I can only run and run, as if I have become a part of this house, trapped in eternal darkness. And then, as I ran through a room, I suddenly realized something horrifying. The figures in the mirror, in the rooms, are no longer mine. They were other creatures, spirits waiting to claim me. I stood there, staring into the mirror, and I felt like I wasn't myself anymore. I have become a part of this house. A voice said from behind me, "You can't escape. You will stay with us forever." Suddenly, I felt a wave of pain go through my body. Something cold filled me, as if I was being sucked into darkness, into a space I couldn't understand. I tried to resist, but my body had lost all strength. This feeling is no longer life. It is a damnation, a death in eternal existence. This house, with all its shadows and spirits and voices, has taken hold of me. As I sat in that quiet room, the light from the faint candle shone on old pieces of paper, fragmentary notes that I had collected during long days of wandering through the gloomy corridors. The strange symbols and indecipherable texts are driving me crazy, but I can't stop. Every step I took, every room I explored, I felt that presence, not just a feeling, but a force, something that kept me imprisoned in this very house. Every time I entered a new hallway, a strange feeling overwhelmed me. The air was cold and damp, making me feel like I was lost in another world, a world I couldn't escape from. The whispers from the walls seemed to be laughing at me, guiding me into never-before-seen corners. Every time I stopped to take notes on what I discovered, I once again felt a gentle touch on my shoulder, like a cold breeze passing by. That feeling, although gentle, gave me goosebumps and my throat was dry. I can't ignore it anymore. This house won't let me back down. Every room I entered was filled with faint moans, small cries of prayers from the souls that had been swallowed by this house. If I stood still, I could hear broken whispers, calls for help from the other side of the wall. I felt the weight of that presence, as if someone was standing right behind me, waiting for me to continue entering the darkest parts of this house. One night, while I was writing in a secret room, the space became more and more stuffy. New scratches on the wall as if someone had just been here, traces of inexplicable existence. I could hear faint sounds, like someone breathing, very close. My stomach tightened and my breathing became heavy. Even though fear was almost overwhelming, I still couldn't stop. I couldn't leave, because I felt like I had become a part of this house. It doesn't want me to be just an ordinary resident. It wanted me to be a part of it, an accomplice in the dark secrets it was keeping. A strange feeling suddenly arose in me. This house doesn't just want me to stay, it wants me to share with it, to integrate into its world. I felt that I was being controlled, not by a physical being, but by this house itself. It has become a part of me, and I, a part of it. When I look back, everything seems to have started from the first night I arrived here. I couldn't pinpoint why, but as soon as I turned off the lights in the apartment, a strange feeling of pressure rose in my chest. This feeling is not like the normal anxiety of moving to a new place. I've moved apartments a few times before, but this time it's different. An invisible pressure weighed down on me, as if there was something inexplicable in this room, something I couldn't see but felt clearly with every breath. My apartment is a shabby place, a place I never thought would become the place I call home. But when I found it, I felt like it was a salvation. Although water stains on the ceiling and cracks in the walls might worry me, I don't pay much attention to them. The homeowner mentioned that the water system was old, and that was just a common problem with older buildings. Not long after, I signed the contract and moved in, hoping that life here would be pleasant, especially since it was close to my office. But right from the first moments, I began to feel that something was wrong. As I arranged the clothes in the small closet, I noticed that the closet door was bent, as if it had been disassembled and not reinstalled properly. Wooden floors creak under every step, especially near the kitchen. The heavy musty smell from the sofa haunted the space. Strangely enough, everything in this apartment seems to be quietly rotting, not because of time, but because of something inexplicable. That evening, as I sat down to eat dinner in the microwave while changing channels, the light from the dim lamp made the atmosphere in the apartment gloomy. I couldn't ignore that strange feeling, a pressure in my chest, a feeling I couldn't explain. It was like a silent warning from this house, a warning that I didn't pay attention to at that time. And then, that inattention is the beginning of everything. The walls began to change. They were no longer just cracks, but strange lines, like faint drawings lurking through old paint. Breathing sounds and small noises began to sound at night. Gentle footsteps from below the apartment, tiny whispers in my ears, made it impossible for me to leave this place. The house had begun to take hold of me. When I fell asleep that night, I felt like I couldn't escape the hold of home. That daydream made me lost in a strange space, where everything was vague and unclear. I couldn't distinguish what was real and what was a dream, I only felt one thing: I couldn't run away. The whispers within the walls had become stronger, the sounds were no longer simply a warning. They became eerie laughter, as if there were thousands of souls surrounding me. The moans from the hidden corners of this small apartment seemed to be calling me, urging me to continue going deeper, to continue searching for long-buried secrets. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand reach out from the darkness and gently tap my shoulder. The feeling made me freeze, my mind reeled, and my throat became dry. But the strangest thing was, I couldn't turn around, I couldn't see who was behind me. There was only dense darkness and the sounds of breathing and strange noises echoing in the air. Am I losing my mind? You can't escape, a voice said, and I realized, it wasn't just in my head. That voice is really here, in this room, in this darkness. I couldn't find its source, but it seemed to come from everywhere, passing over me like waves of fear. I tried to resist, tried to stand up, but my limbs were stiff, as if an invisible force was holding me back, forcing me to listen, to understand what this house wanted me to know. A strange force took control of me, pulling me down each dark hallway, each room I passed leading me deeper into the darkness. This house, it is not a safe place. It was a trap, and I was the prey. The next morning, I couldn't remember clearly what happened. The figures in the mirror are not images of me anymore. I looked in the mirror and saw someone else's face, someone I didn't recognize. Those eyes were cold and lifeless, as if they had lived for centuries. I didn't know who it was, but I felt a strange connection, as if I had become them. The notes I wrote, the old pieces of paper I collected, now seemed filled with some kind of dark power. Every word I write is like opening a new door, a path leading to secrets that I cannot understand. Those characters were not random, they were part of this house, part of something deeper and more ancient than I could have imagined. The following nights, I no longer slept. I sat in the small room, among the old pieces of paper, trying to piece together the strange rituals I had found. But every time I think I'm about to find the answer, a cold wind passes through me, carrying whispers from behind the wall. How do you know? Those whispers echoed, not from the air, but from the walls themselves. I felt they were watching me, as if they knew I was searching for the truth. I couldn't ignore it anymore, couldn't deny that this house had a power that surpassed my imagination. One evening, as I sat in a room full of notes and pages, I noticed a door opening from behind. I don't remember when I opened it, but when I turned around, I found myself facing a room I had never seen before. The windows were broken, dim light from outside shone in, creating strange shadows. In that room, I saw an old armchair. On the chair, there was a person sitting, not moving, not saying a word. I moved closer, and when the light hit the person's face, I saw myself. It's not me now, but another version of me, a version that has been swallowed by this house. Suddenly, I felt a wave of pain invade my body, as if I was being pulled towards it. With every step I took closer to the chair, all my feelings became more and more blurred. I can't retreat, I can't stop. This house has chosen me, and I cannot escape. The next morning, I no longer recognized myself. I stood in front of the mirror, looking at the changed face, and I understood one thing: I had become a part of this house, and the house would never let me go. With every step I took, every hallway I explored, I felt that I was being controlled, as if I was no longer my own master. Every time I entered a new room, I felt its presence, not just the invisible presence of ghosts, but a force, a comforting wave, pulling me into dark spaces I couldn't understand. I'm lost in a maze with no way out. My notes are no longer just random information. They gradually became a set of instructions, a map that led me to where the house wanted me to go. And I can't stop. I know that when I put it all together, I will understand why this house chose me. But I can't stop, I can't turn back. The house took over me. Every step I take, I feel the stronger presence of this house. It was no longer just a physical structure, but had become a living entity, a haunting creature, controlling my every move. I can't remember how many nights have passed. Time has disappeared, and this house has become the only reality left in my mind. One night, as I wandered through familiar hallways, a door suddenly opened before my eyes, automatically and without a sound. I looked into the room, and in that moment, I saw an image that I cannot explain. A human body lay on the floor, its face obscured by pieces of white cloth, seemingly no longer human. The terrible wounds, the deep cuts on my skin, and the dried blood stains made me feel nauseous. It was only for a moment, but I felt that pain, the tension between life and death. I couldn't leave, couldn't look back, as if this house had drawn me into a game I couldn't escape. When I turned around, I saw another door open, a door I had never seen before. The space on the other side is like a black hole, with no bottom, only deep darkness. And I heard breathing. The sound of breathing was steady, as if someone was standing right behind me. The cold from inside was unbearable, as if the air in that room was sucking the life out of me. I tried to step in, but with every step I took it felt like something was holding me back, not letting me go any further. My feet felt heavy, and I felt like I was walking through mud, caught deep in something unimaginable. I can't go back, I can't stop. Every step I take now is no longer freedom, but a commitment to eternal darkness. Suddenly, that room became bright, and I found myself standing in an unimaginable space. Every wall is covered with strange drawings, symbols that do not belong to this world. I couldn't understand them, but I felt a strong urge to continue, to understand them, to put the pieces together. A feeling as if I had been chosen. And then, suddenly, everything changed. The paintings on the walls are no longer ordinary drawings. They began to move, as if they were alive, breathing. The strange words glowed in the light of the candle, and I heard breathing, heavy breathing, as if a giant creature was listening to me, waiting for me to do something. That voice rang out again, this time not from the wall but from within my own body, from the depths of my mind. Keep going, don't stop. You're closer, just one more step, you'll understand everything. Suddenly, I felt a terrible pain go through my body. It was as if someone was tearing every fiber of my being, forcing me to face things I never wanted to see. Every time I tried to step back, my body was pulled back as if an invisible force was holding me back. I stood still, my heart beating so hard that I felt like it was about to explode. The whispers in my ears grew louder, no longer pleas, but threats, warnings as if I had gone too far. You can't go back, you'll never get out. Blurred figures began to appear, they passed me with unimaginable speed, just faint spots of light in the dense darkness. I couldn't see them clearly, but I could feel their presence. These creatures were not people, but souls long dead, ghosts trapped in this house, monsters in the darkness that I could not understand. As I continued into another hallway, a large door opened, and I saw a strange image. A person, possibly a woman, sat in the middle of the room, with long strands of hair covering her face. There were dried blood stains around her body, and I heard crying, but I didn't see her cry. Tears kept flowing from her eyes, but no sound came out. I can't move. My eyes couldn't leave that image, and in that strange moment, I realized something. She's not human anymore. She is part of this house, part of the secrets I am trying to find out. And when I looked into her eyes, I felt as if I was seeing myself in the future, a lost soul, part of this home. The house chose me, and I couldn't refuse. I can't go back, I can't leave. This feeling, the feeling of not being able to escape, envelopes me, like a curse, a bondage that I cannot break. This house, with all its ghosts, secrets, and gloomy doors, has now become mine. I looked back, there was no way to turn back. Every door I open leads me to more horrors, every puzzle piece I put together takes me deeper into the darkness. And I know, whether I like it or not, I have become a part of this house. The presence of home is no longer something I can ignore. It has become a part of me, as if I am breathing it, living it. Every step I take, every action, every decision is monitored and controlled by this house. Every wall, every hallway, every door, all were built not to welcome, but to imprison, to keep me in a game with no way out. That night, as I entered another hallway I had never seen before, I felt a particular heaviness come over me. The fresh air was no longer there, only thick and cold breath remained. I can't stand this oppression anymore. Every step I take feels like I'm walking into hell, but I can't turn back, I can't stop. Suddenly, I stopped. A window in one room opened in front of me, even though I was sure I'd passed by it before and it didn't have a window. I entered the room, and before my eyes was a scene that I could not understand. A giant painting on the wall. It is not an ordinary painting but a vivid painting. A scene was taking place right in the painting, and I realized that I was seeing myself, but not me now, but me in another world, in a space that I couldn't explain. I found myself standing there, in a room full of strange creatures, gloomy ghosts, lifeless eyes staring at me. At that moment, a cold wind suddenly blew, extinguishing all the surrounding light. The room suddenly became dark, and I heard laughter. Not anyone else's, but mine. A terrible laugh rang out from my own body, from deep within my mind. I feel like I'm not me anymore. I am part of this house, part of trapped souls, part of secrets I cannot understand. That feeling that I'm no longer me, it's time for me to face the truth. In an instant, I was caught up in a wave of pain, feeling like I was being torn apart, not physically, but in my mind, my soul. Old memories crumbled, thoughts, emotions, all seemed to be consumed by fire in an uncontrollable rage. I wanted to scream, but there was only a whisper in my head, saying I had come to this point. I've gone too far, and there's no turning back. This house, it doesn't just hold me back. It took over me. Every hallway, every room is a part of it, and I am a part of it. The pieces of the secret gradually become clear. This house, not just an abandoned building, is not just a place to live. It is an entity, a living organism, and I have become a part of it, inseparable. I turned back to look at the picture again. The strange creatures in there suddenly moved. They were no longer drawings, but souls, ghosts, creatures from hell. One of them stepped out of the painting and approached me. It has the appearance of a monster, with fire-red eyes and a face that smells of rot. I couldn't breathe, my legs couldn't move. It felt like I was frozen, like I was being sucked into that creature's body. I no longer have the strength to resist. I'm not myself anymore. This house has taken over my soul, has made me a part of it, and I understand that I cannot escape. I looked into the red eyes staring back at me, and I realized something horrifying. The house didn't just want me to stay. It wants me to merge with it, so that I can become part of eternity. The breathing sounds, the whispers I heard, they weren't just those of trapped souls. They are the souls of those who once lived in this house, those who were swallowed by the house, and now, they are waiting for me, to let me join their fate. A cold feeling enveloped me. Every cell in my body felt like it was dying. Not because this house is killing me, but because it is absorbing me into its eternal darkness. I'm not human anymore. I have become a soul, a part of this house. Suddenly, I realized something even more horrifying. I'm not the first, and I certainly won't be the last. This house has survived for centuries, devouring the weak souls who were attracted by its mystery. And I, now, am just another soul trapped in the endless darkness of the house. But perhaps, in some aspect, I understand this house. It's not just a place of death. It is an organism, a force with a purpose of its own. And I, like many others, became part of that cause. There's no way out. I can't leave. I can't run away from this house. With each passing night, the footsteps in the hallway became clearer, heavier. I can't explain why they were so intentional, as if they were intentionally watching me, following my every step in this house. Those sounds are not random. Every night, they came closer, then stopped right in front of my door, like a warning. I couldn't deny that feeling anymore, the feeling that something was watching me, that this house had another presence, that I had never known about. The third night, the sound of footsteps was different this time. They were no longer slow, but seemed to have anger in every step. They stopped right outside my door. My heart was beating so hard it felt like it was about to break my chest. I sat up in bed, cold sweat drenched my forehead, my palms were wet. I didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe loudly. Those footsteps kept echoing steadily, then suddenly stopped. Then, a strange sound came from behind my headboard. A light scratching sound, like something sharp was dragging on the wall, gave me goosebumps. The scratching sound was like nails drawn on drywall, a creepy sound. My throat is dry. I can't bear it anymore. I slowly stood up and walked towards the wall. Putting my ear close, I felt a strange cold spreading from inside. But when I reached out and touched the wall, everything was silent again. There was no vibration, no change. Only a layer of old, smooth paint remains. But the cracks in the wall have changed. The next morning, I couldn't stop. I have to check the cracks I saw in the room last night. I moved all the furniture out of the room and looked closely at the wall where I had heard the scratching sound. The small cracks seemed to have increased, spreading into long streaks with strange shapes that made me shiver. The cracks were like footprints, the marks of someone pressing into the wall from the other side, leaving faint, inexplicable outlines. Each crack branched out, forming a shape like a giant hand reaching out from inside, as if some creature was waiting on the other side of the wall. I put my hand on the wall, feeling its solidity, but there was a coldness, a strange unevenness around those cracks. A creepy feeling ran up my arm, as if something was waiting for me from the other side of the wall. I tried to breathe calmly, but I couldn't dispel the feeling of fear rising inside me. The next morning, I couldn't stop. I have to check the cracks I saw in the room last night. I moved all the furniture out of the room and looked closely at the wall where I had heard the scratching sound. The small cracks seemed to have increased, spreading into long streaks with strange shapes that made me shiver. The cracks were like footprints, the marks of someone pressing into the wall from the other side, leaving faint, inexplicable outlines. Each crack branched out, forming a shape like a giant hand reaching out from inside, as if some creature was waiting on the other side of the wall. I put my hand on the wall, feeling its solidity, but there was a coldness, a strange unevenness around those cracks. A creepy feeling ran up my arm, as if something was waiting for me from the other side of the wall. I tried to breathe calmly, but I couldn't dispel the feeling of fear rising inside me. The next morning, I met my neighbor in the apartment across the hall. She looked at me sympathetically when I asked about strange noises at night. She just shook her head slightly, telling me I could hear the elevator or the elevator cables, because this was an old building. But I can't believe it. The sounds I heard weren't from the elevator. They come from inside the wall, from a place that no one can explain. A strange feeling has enveloped me all day. Even though I tried to hide my insecurity at work, it all seemed impossible to escape my mind. I can't stop thinking about the cracks, about the strange movements in this apartment. I couldn't understand what this house wanted from me, but I felt that it was waiting for me to discover something. Something that I cannot understand. On Thursday night, I decided I wouldn't close my eyes anymore. I will stay, listen to it all, waiting for what comes next. And I felt something that I couldn't deny. This house is not a place to live. It is a place to die. Thursday night, I couldn't stop. I sat in the dark, the only light was from a small candle on the table. That faint light seemed not enough to repel the darkness that was covering the room. The footsteps in the hallway had stopped a long time ago, but I couldn't escape the feeling that they were still hanging around somewhere, waiting. I know I can't continue living in this fear anymore. I have to face it. I have to understand why this house chose me. The whispering sounded again, this time not just faint sounds, but clear words. Come closer. Open the door. See what I have prepared for you. I can't resist, I can't stop. The strange feeling that I had been chosen, that I couldn't escape, grew stronger and stronger. I felt an invisible force pushing me towards the door behind the living room. I stood up and walked towards that place without being able to explain why. I was filled with fear, but also with an irresistible urge. When I opened the door, a cold breeze suddenly blew across my face, and in that moment, I knew I had entered another dimension. Not an ordinary room. This is a place where time and space no longer exist. In front of me is a long, dim, unlit hallway. The surrounding walls looked like they were made from dense, black stone. I couldn't see clearly, but I could feel that this was a completely different place from the home I used to know. It's like a passage into hell. And I'm so deep into it, there's no turning back. The sounds of heavy breathing began to sound, but not from outside the hallway, but from within the walls themselves. The sound was like a giant creature, breathing long breaths, each breath heavy, making the air thick and difficult to breathe. I couldn't understand why I kept walking, but my feet kept moving, even though each step made me feel like I was sinking into mud. My footsteps echoed on the stone floor, but there was something strange. Those footsteps are not mine. They were like a reflection, as if someone was following me, right behind me. I didn't dare turn around, but I felt that presence, something standing very close, just a step away from me. Then I saw a door open, as if it was inviting me to enter. I don't know why I went that direction, but there was an invisible pull that made me unable to stop. The door opened wide, and I entered a dark room with nothing but a large mirror. There was no light, only the mirror reflecting the darkness, and I knew I couldn't escape anymore. I walked closer to the mirror, my heart beating so fast that I could feel every beat in my chest. When I look there, I see myself, but not who I am now. The face in the mirror had no expression at all, the eyes were empty and lifeless. But what scared me was I couldn't see myself anymore. Instead, I saw a strange creature standing behind me. Its shadow was hazy, indistinct, but its red eyes glowed in the darkness. At that time, I couldn't breathe. It felt like an invisible hand was squeezing my throat. I wanted to turn away, but the mirror wouldn't let me. My hands seemed to have stiffened, unable to move, unable to leave. The eyes in the mirror were looking at me, invading me. And in that moment, I understood one thing: I was no longer me. A voice rang out, not in my head, but from the mirror itself. You are here. You will never leave. You are part of us. Suddenly, a terrible pain invaded my body. I felt like my entire body was being torn apart, every muscle was twisted and stretched to the point where I thought I would fall into pieces. My eyes couldn't leave the mirror, I couldn't escape, and I felt its presence, the creature in the mirror merging with me, taking over my soul. I can no longer control my body. I stood there, looking in the mirror, and I realized that I was no longer human. I have become a part of this house, a part of the strange creatures lurking in the darkness. I cannot escape them. And I know that I will never be able to leave. Feelings of despair and pain overwhelmed me. I am no longer human. This house has made me a part of itself. Creatures and ghosts have completely taken over my soul. I have no other choice but to continue walking into the darkness, to continue living in this house, where there is no way out. With each passing day, I felt myself sinking deeper and deeper into this house, and an indescribable fear enveloped me. Although I tried to restrain myself, the cracks in the wall became more and more noticeable, and I began to feel a presence that I couldn't explain. Footsteps aren't just sounds anymore, they are invitations. An invitation I couldn't refuse, even though I knew it would lead me into a place of no return. Every time footsteps sounded, a suffocating feeling invaded my body. I couldn't breathe. The feeling that I'm not just living in a house, but a part of it, a part of something ancient and scary. I can't stop. An invisible force pulled me to the cracks in the wall, the strange lines, the footprints hidden in them. It felt like there was some creature watching me from inside, watching me every minute. One night, after turning on the lights and sitting in the dark, I heard the knock on the door again. But this time it wasn't a gentle tapping sound. It was a rhythmic tapping sound, like a secret code, as if there was some reminder I didn't fully understand. That knocking sound rang out steadily and endlessly, like a wave hitting the shore. I couldn't close my eyes, couldn't take my eyes off the cracks in the wall. These cracks are now no longer simple cracks, but bumps and chips, as if an invisible hand was pressing hard on the documents inside. I approached the wall, feeling a slight vibration as I placed my hand on the plaster. Suddenly, the cracks seemed alive, they expanded, then contracted, as if breathing, as if waiting for something. That feeling made me unable to move, my hands were shaking, I felt a tremor coming from inside my body, and my heart was beating so hard that I thought I would pass out. Unable to bear it anymore, I snatched my hand back. But when I look at the cracks, I don't see them returning to their original state. Instead, they widened, forming strange outlines, like footprints or fingerprints pressed deep into the plaster. I stared at them, and suddenly, I felt a strong presence, as if someone was standing right behind me, just a foot away. Unable to bear it any longer, I rushed into the living room and turned on the light, but the cracks were still clearly present in the darkness. Footsteps sounded again, but this time, they weren't just coming from the hallway. They come from inside the house itself, from the walls themselves. Suddenly, I realized that this house was not just a place to live. It is a living, breathing, moving, and changing entity. When I look back, the cracks are no longer as simple as before. They opened, and from within I saw a shadowy shape, a shadow begin to move in the darkness. It wasn't a person, but something unrecognizable, just glowing red eyes looking at me from the darkness. And then, the sound of heavy breathing began to sound, a breathing sound that I felt right near me, even though I couldn't see anything. In the midst of a panic, I rushed to the door and hastily checked the apartment next door. The door was still closed, no one was there, but I felt another existence inside, a presence that I couldn't explain. I wanted to run, I wanted to leave, but my body wouldn't listen, I couldn't escape. The cracks in the wall now felt like doors into another world, and I was being pulled into it. Every night, those footsteps come again. But this time, they weren't just footsteps anymore. They are the sounds of something bigger, more powerful. I knew I couldn't escape anymore. The footprints in the plaster had now expanded, taking over the entire room. They are like scars on the body of this house, traces of the souls that have been imprisoned here, and I am next. There was no one else I could call. There's no one else I can trust. I had lost all control. I can't go back, I can't get out, and I can't stop. I have become a part of this house, a part of the dark secrets it holds. One night, when everything had calmed down, I sat quietly in the dark. The footsteps stopped, but that silence only made me feel more scared than ever. This house seems to know where I am, knows what I'm doing. It never gives up on me, never leaves me alone. With each passing day, I felt its presence more and more, as if it were breathing with me, waiting for something. Suddenly, a cold spread throughout my body. Not from the cracks in the wall, but from deep inside the house. I felt myself being pulled into an invisible path, a path with no light, no way out. The space around me began to change. The walls shattered, the floor cracked, and from deep in the darkness, a horrifying laugh rang out. But it wasn't the laughter of a human being. Suddenly, the wall in front of me started to move. I felt movement, as if a giant creature was reaching out from the cracks, something not of this world. The sound of scratching and steady breathing rang out, and I knew I had gone too far. I can't go back. This house has taken over me. It wasn't just a place, but a living entity, devouring every part of me. When I walked into that hallway, I couldn't believe my eyes. The walls are no longer walls. They became thick layers of skin, with deep scratches, handprints and footprints, as if someone had lived in them, moving back and forth in the darkness. Dried blood stains on the plaster. I can't understand where they come from. With every step I took, a sound echoed from the wall itself, a breath, a call, an undeniable reminder. That feeling made me unable to breathe. I could feel the presence of something, something invisible but clear, as if eyes were watching me, waiting for me. I couldn't avoid its gaze. The cracks in the wall were growing larger, as if they were opening a new path. And there was nothing I could do but keep walking into it, into the depths of the darkness, where there was no way out. As I approached the largest crack, a cold wind blew strongly into my face. I didn't dare touch it, but the light from the flashlight shined on me and I saw strange streaks of paint. They looked like dried blood stains. I couldn't understand it, but at that moment, I felt something was waiting for me from the other side of the wall. Unable to bear it any longer, I decided to open the crack. There was a sound, like bones being broken, and the plaster slowly peeled off the wall. Down there was not air, but a dark space. It's not a room or a hallway. It is an endless black hole, like a deep cave, with no bottom and no end. And from inside, I felt a strange movement, as if there was a giant creature moving inside. I couldn't see clearly, but I felt a strong presence. A presence I couldn't explain, but I knew it was waiting for me. Suddenly, I heard footsteps from inside the black hole. Each step was heavy, not that of a human. I know it's getting closer. And then, that laughter rang out again, this time not from the house, but from that darkness, a place I never thought could exist. As I stepped closer into that black hole, I saw something moving. It was not a human figure, but a strange shape, like a creature without a specific shape, but with glowing eyes. I felt my heart tighten, as if it were bleeding. The creatures had no words, only a feeling of darkness, a deep horror. It approached me, every step it took made terrible noises, as if it was dragging hell with it. As I touched the wall, a wave of pain tore through my body, and I heard a voice in my head, "Welcome to my home. You cannot escape." A wave of pain surged through me, leaving me unable to move, unable to breathe. I don't know how long I stood there, looking at that presence, but when I turned around, I couldn't take my eyes off it. The creature's red eyes were staring at me, and I knew I couldn't escape anymore. My steps felt heavy, as if I were being pulled into an eternal black hole. Everything around me became blurry, as if I was falling into endless darkness, where the house had become a living thing, an entity that could control everything around it. I can't get out. I cannot save myself. Suddenly, the cracks in the wall opened again, as if they were welcoming me into another world, a world I couldn't understand. And I know, whether I like it or not, I have become a part of this house. Part of the darkness and secrets it has kept hidden for so long. A cold and heavy feeling enveloped me as I stood facing the dark entrance, where the cracks in the wall continued to widen. The cold wind blew from inside like an invitation, as if there was something inside waiting for me. That strange creature, with its glowing red eyes and vague appearance, is still present in my mind. His laughter kept echoing in my mind, endlessly, like a reminder that I couldn't escape this house. Every step I took, every time I touched the wall, I felt pain, as if an invisible force was pulling me into another dimension, a world that I couldn't understand. Every time I got closer, the cracks widened, footprints and handprints appeared from inside, like living creatures, waiting for me to enter. I can't fight this feeling. I can't leave, I can't stop. The house had completely taken over me. At this time, there were no longer footsteps. They became loud noises, like a wave crashing against the shore. Every time it hit, I felt an invisible push from inside the house. Cracks had spread all over the wall, and now they were undulating up and down, as if something was moving behind. The sound of breathing, heavy and steady breathing, kept repeating in the air, making it impossible for me to breathe. Every step I took was heavy, as if I was carrying an invisible weight that was pressing me down. Suddenly, I heard a groan from deep in the darkness. It was not the sound of a human being, but the sound of a giant creature, struggling in the space it had been trapped in for a long time. Those moans grew louder and louder, as if they were threatening me, as if they were trying to drag me into an endless black hole from which I could not escape. As I got closer, the cracks in the wall were no longer just cracks. They had widened into large gashes, like open mouths, waiting to swallow me whole. Suddenly, the wall began to move. I felt a vibration from inside, as if something was moving, coming out of those cracks. Those giant creatures have awakened. My eyes opened wide in panic. I looked at the wall, and I saw a strange shape, not a person, but a creature crawling out of the cracks. It had an unimaginable appearance, a dark creature with no discernible face, but fiery red eyes that kept staring at me, as if taking over my soul. At that moment, I couldn't breathe, as if the air had been sucked from my lungs. My head was spinning, my heart was beating wildly. I know, I can't escape. This house has completely captured me. And now, that creature, that dark entity, has decided that I will be a part of it. I don't know how long I stood there, but a dark feeling enveloped me. The creature moved closer, step by step, as if it was waiting for me to look at it, see it, and understand that I had no way out. I couldn't feel life in my body anymore. Every sense, every consciousness is swallowed up. I had lost all hope, but I felt like something was holding me back, as if a part of my soul was tied to this house, a part that couldn't escape. And then, I heard a voice. Not from the creature's mouth, but from within my own mind. You are mine. You can't leave. My eyes were wide open, but I couldn't see anything but darkness. My lips cannot speak. Each invisible string pulled me into that black hole, into an eternity that I could not avoid. And in that moment, I understood that I was more than just someone living in this house. I am a part of it, an inseparable part. I cannot resist. The creatures took possession of me, and I became a part of it. The footsteps in the hallway were no longer my footsteps. Those are the footsteps of that creature, of the souls trapped in this house. The cracks in the wall are no longer cracks. They were doors into darkness, into worlds I couldn't escape. I have become a part of this house, a part of those creatures. And I can't get out. From that day on, I was no longer myself. This house has become a part of me, and I have become one with it. Cracks in walls are no longer simply signs of damage. They are cuts, passages leading to another world. Every night, I wake up and find myself standing somewhere in the house, as if I've been walking through invisible hallways that I don't remember passing. Every morning, I wake up feeling like something has just passed me by. The paint marks on the floor changed, and I realized that the footprints and handprints weren't just in one place anymore. They appeared all over the apartment, extending from the living room to the bedroom, overlapping each other, forming a strange network, as if someone was walking around me, observing me, following my every move. I can't differentiate between what is real and what is a dream. This house is not just where I live. It had become an invisible monster, an entity I couldn't separate from. Not only did it control my surroundings, but it began to infiltrate my mind. I began having constant nightmares in which I was drawn into the darkness, pulled into cracks in the wall, with no way out. And in those dreams, I heard breathing, whispering, the voices of the souls that had been swallowed by the house. One night, as I sat in the living room, I looked at the cracks in the wall. Suddenly, they began to stretch, not from the outside, but from the inside. The cracks seemed to be alive, and I felt a cold wave spreading from within. I can't stop. An invisible gravitational force pulled me closer, and I couldn't escape it. My arms trembled as I placed my hands on the wall. I felt like those cracks were breathing, a cold, heavy breath. An uncomfortable feeling, as if something from inside was trying to spill out. I suddenly felt a small noise from behind, and when I turned around, I saw a figure passing by the window. A figure, but not human, it was hazy, as if created from darkness itself. I stared at that light bulb, feeling my heart clench in my chest. My eyes widened, and I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. The sound of breathing echoed in my head again, this time clearer. You can't escape from here. You are already a part of me. I can't leave. I can't stop. The cracks in the wall seemed to be widening, as if they were inviting me in, like a never-ending passage. Footsteps, whispers, and now strange sounds from inside the house, they were all calling to me in unison, luring me. This house doesn't want me to leave. It wants me to stay. It wants me to be a part of it. And I couldn't resist. Every night, I look at the cracks, and every night, they change. Footprints and handprints constantly appeared, not only on the wall but also on the floor, on furniture, even on objects that I touched. Every morning I wake up and see new tracks, tracks that I can't explain. This house is not just a place, but a living organism, and I have become a part of it. One night, as I sat in my room, looking at the wall where the cracks continued to widen, I heard another sound, one I had never heard before. It was a heavy breathing sound, like someone was sitting right next to me. I turned around and looked into the darkness, but there was no one there. However, I felt its presence, an invisible suction that made me unable to move, unable to breathe. A feeling of fear and despair engulfed me, as if I couldn't get out of this house anymore. The whispers in my head didn't stop. You can't leave. You will be a part of me forever. I can't bear it anymore. I cannot live in this obsession. But as soon as I tried to step out of the house, I felt a strong force pulling me back. I can't get out. The creatures took complete control of me, and I knew that I was no longer human. I have become a part of this house, a part of the endless darkness it covers. Silence filled the house, but it wasn't a normal silence. It was a suffocating silence, as if the house was waiting for something, an event about to happen. Cracks on the wall are no longer just physical traces, they have become wounds and cuts on the body of the house. Every time I touched them, I felt a sharp pain, as if the house was resisting my intrusion, but it was drawing me deeper, as if I were a part of it. Every night, when I close my eyes, I no longer see mere darkness. I found myself caught up in an unknown space, where everything had no limits, where time and space no longer had meaning. The sounds of footsteps are no longer as simple as before. They became heavy footsteps, as if a giant creature was approaching me, and I couldn't run away. I know, I cannot escape the control of this house. It swallowed me whole, and I couldn't move, couldn't scream. One night, when I entered the room, I noticed that everything had changed. The wall in front of me is no longer a wall. It had turned into a black hole, with no bottom, as if a part of space had been torn apart. I couldn't understand what I was seeing. I couldn't stop, even though fear had completely taken over my body. When I looked into that hole, I felt a strong pull from inside. It wasn't a physical hole but an invisible hole, like a tornado sucking me in. I feel like I'm being sucked into it, unable to escape. Everything around me faded, and I found myself drifting in a dark space, unable to distinguish what was real and what was imaginary. Suddenly, I saw a strange image. A face appeared in the darkness, but it wasn't mine. It was the face of a creature with no discernible shape, but with fiery red eyes, staring at me. I felt its presence, a cold, dark feeling. Those eyes not only looked at me, but also penetrated my mind, as if they were reading my every thought, feeling everything inside me. As I stared into those eyes, a voice echoed in my head, not through words, but through thoughts. You are a part of me. You cannot escape. You will forever be a part of this house. Suddenly, my memories began to be torn apart. I can't distinguish between the past and the present. Images of past lives, memories of family and friends, all shattered, as if they had never existed. All that was left was darkness, this house, this creature taking over my mind. I'm not myself anymore. I didn't know who I was, but I knew that I was part of this house, part of the giant creatures, waiting to devour my soul. I can't stop. Those creatures, the dark entities, pulled me into a world I couldn't understand. I felt like I was sinking deeper into a nightmare that I couldn't escape from. Those red eyes continued to look at me, as if they controlled my every thought and every action. I have no sense of time anymore. I no longer have a sense of space. I just knew that I was completely taken over. A sharp pain shot through my body again. I can't feel my parts anymore. Every nerve became stiff, as if I had lost feeling, lost everything. And just when I thought I had hit bottom, a strange feeling came back. I felt like I was sinking into an endless black hole, where there was no way out, where this house, this entity, had completely swallowed me up. I don't know how long I stood there. Everything around me suddenly became silent. The footsteps, the whispers, all disappeared. Only darkness remained. And in that moment, I understood that I was no longer human. I became part of this house, part of those creatures. And I'll never get out again. This house is more than just a place to stay. It is a living entity, and I have become an inseparable part of it. The cracks in the wall, the strange marks on the floor, the sounds of footsteps, all are part of me now. And I know that, whether I like it or not, I will stay here forever, becoming a part of this house, a part of eternal darkness. A strange feeling constantly haunts me. Every night, I feel that presence, a cold, heavy presence, always somewhere near me. That voice couldn't describe the fear I was experiencing. It wasn't a normal whisper. It was something invisible, but clear, as if it was taking over my mind. I heard footsteps in the hallway, but it didn't just come from the walls, but from within the ground itself. It didn't sound like human footsteps. The creatures were moving, waiting for something. My feelings became more and more tense when I realized that the voice did not come from far away, but from within the well itself. Something more alive than silence lurks there. This house, where I live, is now more than just a shelter. It had become a haunted space, a land of the inexplicable, and I myself was pulled into this nightmare with no way out. One evening, I couldn't resist the urge anymore. I took the flashlight and went outside. The gentle wind blew through the plants and I heard rustling in the distance, right next to my well. The dogs in the barn were silent, which made the atmosphere even heavier. How many times have I seen them bark at the slightest noise, but tonight they didn't move at all. I approached the well, the light from my flashlight illuminating the wet rock face. The cracks in the surface of the well now looked like deep scratches, and I saw faint lines of stains, like traces of what had once been underground. Strange characters, symbols that looked like ancient writing, appeared more clearly in my weak light. They weren't just random drawings, but traces of something I couldn't understand, but it made me tremble. It felt like someone was standing in a well, looking up at me from the depths. Suddenly, I heard a voice, but it wasn't human. No, it was something rude, echoing in the darkness, and I felt the words through the cold air. "Open it, we're waiting." Those words were like an order, but not mine. I felt each word like an invisible string pulling me in, sucking me deep into the darkness of the well. A strange name that I didn't recognize rang out in the quiet space. "Open up. Let us see you." At this point, I couldn't bear it anymore. Cold sweat drenched my body. Every step I took closer to the well, every step I felt something was holding me back. That feeling is like a connection, but not a connection between humans and this world. It was like a connection between me and something ancient, dangerous, something I couldn't explain. Suddenly, I saw the rocks in the well move. A large piece of stone slowly moved away from the surface of the well, as if someone was trying to open the entrance. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was no wind, no influence other than myself, but the rock moved, and I heard the squeak of metal as it hit the rock. It felt like an invisible hand was pulling me, not giving me a chance to escape. At this point, I no longer had the strength to resist. I stood still, not daring to move. The voice rang out again, this time not in space, but in my own mind. "You will not escape from here. You will be mine." A painful hiss rang out from inside the well, making it impossible for me to breathe. It was a cry as if from a monstrous creature in captivity, and I knew I couldn't back down. That voice became clearer and clearer, as if it was coming directly into my ears. "Open the way, then I will come." Everything around me seemed to be in darkness, a deep darkness where I couldn't escape. I began to feel a strong pull from the well, as if something was pulling me down. That shadow, this creature that I couldn't see, had completely taken over me. I cannot resist. I can only keep going down, deeper, like a puppet in its hands. The cracks in the wall are no longer just traces of an old house. They have become gateways into darkness. The symbols on the wall now seem to come to life, like eyes watching me, waiting for me to open them. No matter how I tried to run away, no matter how much I thought I could leave, this house had completely swallowed me up. And then, one day, I was no longer me. I am a part of this house, a part of the underground darkness, where strange creatures still lurk, waiting for those who dare to search. The voices still rang in my head, but this time, it wasn't an invitation anymore. They are orders. You will never get out. With each passing night, I felt as if the space around me was changing. The walls are no longer walls. They become thick skins, like a giant creature slowly replacing everything. I could feel the movement, the vibrations from within each wall. The cracks are no longer just cracks, they are deep cuts, wounds where the house is opening up to show me another world, a world from which I cannot escape. One rainy night, I sat quietly in the living room, staring at the large crack in the wall. I can't stop looking at it. The cracks widened, and then something, a strange light, flashed from inside. It is not ordinary light. It was a strange light, as if the flame of an old lamp, shining from underground, from another world. Dark shadows passed by, undulating like imprisoned souls, unable to escape. A strange noise rang out, this time not from the well, but from the cracks in the wall. I stood up, walked closer, and suddenly, I felt a cold wind blowing from inside, so cold that it gave me goosebumps. But I can't stop. Everything in me, every cell in my body, pointed towards that crack. My hands automatically reached out, touching the cold wall, and immediately, I felt a pain shoot through my hands, as if I had just encountered a source of ghostly energy. I can't breathe. The air became heavy, like there was a strong pull from inside the wall, making me feel like my body was gradually melting, blending into the darkness behind it. A faint light flashed in the darkness, and I realized that I wasn't just looking at a wall, I was looking at something that wasn't human. A strange, unclear shape, but with glowing red eyes, like two burning flames. They didn't move, but I felt that they were looking at me, penetrating my soul. An intense pain suddenly invaded my body. It was not an ordinary physical pain. It was an emotional pain, so painful that I felt like I was losing everything that belonged to me. Every cell in my body was screaming, as if I was being torn apart from the inside. I can't breathe. I can't move. I could only stare at those red eyes, eyes without soul, the eyes of a creature imprisoned in the dark. I turned around, tried to run away, but couldn't. Everything around me seemed to be engulfed in darkness, as if this whole space was becoming a bottomless pit. I felt myself being pulled down, underground, into the well that I had thought was just an old structure. But now, I know that it is not ordinary well. It is a dark pit that holds imprisoned souls and long-forgotten creatures. Every time I approached the well, I felt an invisible force pulling me down, as if the well was inviting me into an eternity. The whispers echoed in my head again, this time not a normal voice, but something from underground, from the well. "Open up, let me see you." That voice sounded like an order, but there was something strange about it. It is not a threat. It was like an invitation that couldn't be refused. I don't understand why I can't fight back, but I know, if I don't open up, I will be swallowed by this darkness forever. Those creatures are waiting for me. It wants me to open a path, so it can emerge. Every night, I stand there, looking into the well, looking at the crack, and I know, this haunting will never stop. This house, this well, that creature, they are already a part of me. I can't run away, I can't escape them. The cracks in the wall, the strange symbols were ingrained in my mind. Every time I look at them, I feel like I'm being sucked in, like I'm part of these ghosts, and they will never let me out. And every night, when I hear that voice, I know, I have become a part of this dark world. It's not where I live anymore. It's where I get stuck. And I will be here forever, unable to escape. Every night I wake up in a delirium. Cracks in the wall are no longer simple cracks. They are not signs of natural deterioration. They are tears that are opening a door to hell. I no longer know where I am, I no longer know whether I am truly alive or not. Every morning when I wake up, I feel like I just woke up from a terrible dream, but I can't escape that nightmare. The well. It's not just any old building anymore. It is a hole in reality, a hole that leads into darkness. Something was waiting at the bottom of the well, a creature that couldn't be seen, but I felt its presence. It never stops. It never gives up on me. I can't leave this house. I can't leave the well. Every night, I hear that voice again. Not an ordinary whisper. It rang in my head, as if someone was invading my mind, controlling my every thought and every action. You can't escape. You will always be a part of me. Every time I entered the well, I felt the cold spreading from underground, as if I was entering another world. A world with no light, no air, only endless darkness. And in that darkness, I heard strange noises. The noises sounded like someone was moving at the bottom of the well, as if a giant creature was moving from deep inside. I couldn't escape the feeling that something was waiting for me at the bottom, and that creature was starting to wake up. One night, as I stood looking into the well again, I noticed strange symbols on the rocks. These are not simple cracks. They are ancient drawings and characters, carved on stone surfaces long ago. They are not just random traces. They were like a map to a place I couldn't understand. These characters, although I couldn't read them, I felt they were speaking to me. They are asking me to do something. Cracks in wells are no longer simple. They have turned into doors leading into another world. A world full of darkness and strange creatures. I felt a strong pull, an irresistible urge, as if I was being called into it, into a world I couldn't escape. I can't fight this urge anymore. One night, I decided to step into the well. I can't stop. My eyes blurred in the darkness, but I continued down. The cracks in the rock were like doors that mysteriously opened, and I stepped through them, step by step, into the space below. And then, I heard that voice. This time, it was no longer a whisper. It was a clear voice, echoing from deep within the darkness. You can't escape. You're already a part of me. A pain shot through me, and I felt like I was melting, being sucked into an unknown space. I couldn't see anything but darkness, but I felt its presence, the creature in the well, approaching me, preparing to take my soul. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand touch my shoulder. Not a human hand, but a cold, hard, powerful hand. I turned around, but didn't see anyone. There is only darkness. But I felt a strong presence, something looking at me from the darkness. At that moment, I realized that I had completely become a part of this house, a part of the well. I can't get out. I can't leave here. The cracks in the wall, the strange marks on the floor, they are all part of me now. And the creature in the well, the creature that had been waiting for me for so long, took over my mind. That black shadow completely took over me. I'm not human anymore. I am part of this dark world where ghosts and strange creatures live. And every night, when I heard that voice, I knew that I was no longer able to escape. The voice echoed in my head again, you can't escape. You are mine. Once again, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. A vague fear that I couldn't explain kept coming every time I faced that mirror. This time, I no longer just checked the mirror to see if I was okay. I saw something strange in my own eyes. Something different. That's how my reflection slows, with each blink, a terrifying delay. My eyes looked towards me, but my reflection had a strange sensitivity, like I was being observed from another world. That laugh. For the first time, I not only saw myself laughing, but I heard that laughter from inside myself, from the mirror. A cold feeling ran down my spine when I realized that the me in the mirror no longer reflected me. He laughed, but not the way I laughed. My reflection became independent, it seemed like it lived a separate life. Sometimes, my image not only repeats my movements, but also shows separate actions, small movements as if observing me. Every time I look in the mirror, I see not only my own image, but as if there was someone else, a shadow, looking back at me, but it wasn't me. One night, I decided to experiment. I stood still and looked in the mirror, doing a simple movement. But when I blinked, my image continued to move for a few more seconds, as if it was no longer me controlling it but someone else. I was startled, but then continued, trying to repeat the action. Once again, my pictures don't match me. It started smiling when I wasn't smiling, and my mouth went dry as I looked at it, feeling like something was invading me through the mirror. But there is something even more terrible. When I look in the mirror, I don't just see myself. I heard voices inside my head, as if from behind that glass, as if from another world. That voice rang out, hoarse and vague, like the whisper of a soul. You are mine. You can't escape. I clearly heard my name in that sentence, but it wasn't just my name. It was also called a strange name, a name that I couldn't remember, but it made me feel like there was an invisible string connecting me to something in the mirror, something that was not me. The image in the mirror was not merely a reflection, it began to represent another me, another being waiting for me. A being that I cannot control. I couldn't understand why I couldn't get rid of that feeling. Why did that shadow follow me? Why can the reflection in the mirror be so independent? I decided to ignore the fear and test it again the next night. This time, when I looked in the mirror, I felt a change in the air. The room became quieter, but that silence made me nervous. When I looked in the mirror one last time, I saw something strange. The image in the mirror is no longer me. It was no longer reflected back at me, but another creature, a shadowy shadow with glowing red eyes and a mouth with an incredibly wide smile. That image started smiling at me, as if waiting for me to do something. It started moving, but not my way. It moved as if it was living a separate life, and I was just a shadow in its world. I can't do anything anymore. I cannot escape it. The feeling of fear, anxiety, and reflection in the mirror completely took over me. I'm not me anymore. I became part of that image, part of a shadow I couldn't control. Every time I look in the mirror, I don't just see myself anymore. I saw that creature, a black shadow with glowing red eyes, looking at me, smiling at me, as if I were a part of it. Every night, I see it again, the shadow in the mirror, closer and closer to me. I felt a strong pull from behind, as if the creature was pulling me into its world. Its red eyes kept looking at me, without leaving, without stopping, as if it had completely taken over my mind. And then, I realized, maybe I'm not me anymore. I am part of that shadow. I can't get out. Every time I look in the mirror, I feel like I'm seeing another world. It's not just my reflection anymore. The creature in the mirror no longer just stood still, it began to move, every time I blinked. This time, I couldn't escape it. Its red eyes no longer looked at me from afar, but seemed to have moved towards me. That cold feeling, like someone was touching my skin, squeezing me from the inside. Every night, I feel like I'm slowly losing my sense of time. Night came again, and I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear but because of a strange feeling, as if I no longer belonged to this world. The creatures in the mirror are no longer an invisible shadow. It was starting to spill out, as if it was invading me. Every time I look in the mirror, I no longer see my I. Instead something else, an indescribable entity, was smiling and looking at me, not with hostility but with possession. It didn't just take over my image, it took over my mind. That feeling became a living nightmare. Every step I take in this house, every time I look in the mirror, I feel a small change, an encroachment of darkness. Walls are no longer just walls. They are like nets that are slowly tightening me, dragging me into inexplicable spaces. The cracks in the wall not only widened, but they seemed to grow arms, invisible strings, pulling me closer, as if inviting me into a place of no return. One night, when I walked into the living room, I found myself standing right in front of the large mirror. I didn't realize when I got there. My eyes couldn't take their eyes off the reflection, and I began to notice something strange. The image in the mirror, although mine, is not. The creatures in the mirror, that shadow, had now completely taken over me. My eyes, my mouth, all the smallest movements are controlled by it. The I in the mirror is not just a reflection, but an independent being, with its own consciousness. Every night, that voice echoed in my head, and this time, it was more than just a whisper. That voice was like an order, echoing in my mind, making it impossible for me to distinguish between my thoughts and the thoughts caused by it. Open the door, let me out. Suddenly, I felt its presence, not from the mirror, but from inside my body. It felt like someone was invading my mind, pulling me into darkness. The distinction between me and it gradually became blurred, as if we were becoming a single entity, as if I had begun to merge into that shadow, an inseparable shadow. I can't resist anymore. This house, this well, the creature in the mirror, they have all become a part of me. Every night, I no longer feel my existence in this world. I saw only darkness, and that shadow was no longer a reflection. It is a living creature, living inside me, controlling my every thought and action. The last time I tried to run away, I found myself standing in front of the door of the house, my hand clutching the doorknob. But when I looked back in the mirror, I saw my image smiling at me, but it wasn't my smile. That was the smile of the creature in the mirror. And when I turned around, I realized that the door was no longer a way out. It was just a board stuck in the dark, like a trap waiting for me. I can't get out. Everything in this house has become a part of me. Every step I take, I feel its presence. The walls are no longer walls. They are cracks, fissures, holes leading into another world. A dark world where those creatures are waiting for me. Every night, when I look in the mirror, I don't see myself anymore. I saw only darkness, and that creature was waiting for me, smiling at me, telling me I would never get out. That feeling, like a heavy rock pressing on my chest, couldn't stop. That shadow is not my shadow anymore. It doesn't move in sync with me, doesn't follow the same rhythm. Every time I took a step, it jumped one step later, like a slow, but haunting imitation. Sometimes, I feel like I'm the only one who sees it. But when I turned around, every time I looked in the mirror, every time I looked at the floor, it was present, hovering around me like a reminder, I am no longer alone in this house. That presence was like something indescribable, a formless, yet perceptible entity, hiding in the darkness, just waiting for a moment of inattention, a moment of release, to take me over completely. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room, my finger holding a pen, but I couldn't write down anything clearly. The thoughts kept piling up on each other, as if I were gradually sinking into a bottomless pit, and the more I thought, the more clearly that shadow appeared in every aspect. It's not just a dark spot or a blurry shape anymore. It began to move, twist, and contract as if trying to create a shape of its own. Something very close, very real, but not human. And then, sometimes, I feel a cold hand gently touching my shoulder, a feeling that I cannot deny. It is a presence, standing behind me, always present. The shadow no longer just followed me, it started to draw on me. It's like a shadow that always follows me every step of the way. Every time I blinked, I saw it stop there, and after I opened my eyes, I felt like something was wrong, not what it was at first. Tiny shadows, strange patches of darkness, started from familiar objects in the house, and I felt like I was surrounded. Every time I stand back, it will stand there, even if just a little bit, but enough for me to notice the difference. The shadow wasn't just following me, it was trying to cling to me, trying to make itself a part of me, a form of me, a shadow of myself. One night, as I walked through the hallway, I noticed something strange. As I walked, I saw another shadow, a shadow that couldn't possibly be mine. It moved behind me, even though I wasn't moving. It was a shock. For a moment, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I stood still, and the shadow continued to move as if waiting for me to return. A trembling feeling suddenly ran down my spine, but I didn't dare turn around, afraid that when I turned back, the shadow would appear, appearing more clearly than ever. The next day, I tried to dispel the obsession. I went out to work, acting as if nothing strange was going on. Those shadows cannot leave me. Every time I looked in the mirror, I realized that I couldn't take my eyes off my own image, as if it was looking back at me from behind. Every time I drive, I always feel it behind the car, or sometimes in the rearview mirror, like a shadow waiting to pounce on me when I'm not paying attention. I tried to work normally, but that shadow was still there, always watching me, moving with me. I sat in my office working, and even though I didn't look in the mirror, I still felt that shadow somewhere near me, glued to me. Every time I looked at the floor, I couldn't help but notice that shadow was still following me, transforming every time I moved, trying to merge with me, forming an uncertain, indistinct shape. Finally, one night, I couldn't stand it anymore. I turned off all the lights in the house and walked down to the basement. That basement was always gloomy, full of cold concrete walls and empty space. I thought that if I were in complete darkness, the shadow would disappear. But as soon as I sat down and turned off the flashlight, I heard it, that shadow, begin to fill the space around me. At first, I saw nothing but darkness, but then the small light from the flashlight shone again, and I realized something terrible. That shadow had become a living entity, growing larger and larger, taking over the space around me. A feeling of fear began to overwhelm me. I can't stand up. That shadow took over me. Not in the way I expected, but by taking complete control of me. I'm not me anymore. I was part of it, and it took me over, plunging me into eternal darkness. Everything started to change after that night. Even though I tried to return to a normal life, something inside me had changed. Every time I walked through the hallway, I felt the heaviness, not of the air, but of something invisible, watching me. Everything remained the same, home, work, people around me, but that feeling of presence stuck with me. On quiet nights, I can't escape the quiet chanting in my head. It wasn't a normal sound, but an abnormal sound, as if it came from my own shadow. The air in my room seemed to become thicker. Every time I looked at my shadow on the wall, I felt like it wasn't entirely mine. It was like a twisted image, a figure that didn't resonate with me at all. Every time I look in the mirror, I see more than just myself. The shadow in the mirror began to change. Sometimes it smiled, sometimes it looked at me with bloodshot eyes. That's not my smile. Not my eyes. I realized that that shadow no longer reflected what I did. It has its own existence, an independent form of existence, and it always finds a way to touch me, gradually engulfing me in darkness. I don't go up to the attic anymore, but the images there are still stuck in my mind. I began to feel stressed every time I entered the house, seeing shadows passing outside the window, inexplicable shapes. Every time I touch an object in the house, it feels like that shadow is also touching me from behind. At night, the sound of chanting resounded in my head, gradually fading but always present. That shadow was no longer a twisted shape. It started to appear more clearly. It not only stood still in the mirror but also moved around me, embracing me from every dark corner of this house. Sometimes I see it in the dark, sometimes I feel it right behind me, but when I turn around, it disappears, leaving only light scratches on the mirror, signs as if someone had drawn on it. Every night, when I close my eyes to sleep, I feel that shadow next to me. It said nothing, but its presence was inevitable. There were times when I woke up in the middle of the night, in a daze, and realized I couldn't move. It was as if someone was holding my body tightly, forcing me to stand still in silence, in the dark. Each time, I felt fear clawing at my mind. I can't leave, I can't run away, because I know that when I look into the darkness, that shadow will follow me again, like a ghost waiting for me somewhere, always following closely. And then, one night, I looked in the mirror and saw it, clearer than ever. No longer a hazy image, but a living, moving entity with distinct movements. It looked at me, smiled, and I felt it wanted me to do something, wanted me to participate in a game that I couldn't understand. I stood there, trembling, unable to take my eyes off that shadow. That shadow doesn't just move in the mirror anymore. It was out of there, out of the reflected world and into the real world. Every day, it follows me. Every night, it's still there, waiting. I'm not me anymore. I was part of that shadow, and that shadow became a part of me. Every step I take in this house reminds me that I am no longer alone. That shadow always follows, like an inseparable entity. I don't know if I can live with it, or if it will live with me forever. Every time I look in the mirror, I don't just see myself anymore. I see it. And it's waiting. Even though I locked the box and put the key in a safe place, I couldn't escape the feeling of tension that nagged at me. The diary still haunts me, and a part of me feels strongly that I cannot simply ignore it. I tried putting it aside, but every time I saw the box, it felt like an invisible presence, some force, was pulling me closer. I haven't slept well for a long time. On dark nights, I can't stop thinking about that diary. The strange feeling it gave, as if someone was staring at me from inside the old pages. Some nights, I wake up and feel my own shadow, but not a normal shadow. That shadow never moved with me, but stood still, as if waiting for me to look back, then begin to change. Every time I look in the mirror, I no longer see myself. The reflections seem to be squirming, out of sync with my movements. And when I looked at the small box, that feeling returned. It was as if something in that box, not physical, but something intangible, was waiting for me. One morning, after waking up from a nightmare whose details I couldn't remember, I decided to check out the camera. Each time, I tried to push these thoughts away, but the camera served as a reminder, a sign that everything I was experiencing was real. Certain that I couldn't ignore it anymore, I inserted the memory card into the computer. And as the video played, I saw myself in the room, standing there, looking at the box. The thing that scared me the most was when I saw the diary. It opened, even though I was sure I had put it away. And the page had new lines again, red lines, like the sentences I had read before, but now they had changed. There was a sentence written at the bottom of the page, like a whisper, like a curse. Can't escape me. I quickly stopped the video, but that feeling still haunted me. I stood up, my hands shaking, cold sweat running down my forehead. Everything in the room suddenly felt heavy, as if the air was thicker than ever. I looked out the window, but the space outside was no different from what I felt inside, the darkness, the eerie stillness. I try to face the truth. No one can know what I'm going through. I couldn't explain to anyone else that the shadow in the mirror, the diary, the changing image was slowly consuming me. I felt like I was being watched not just by a shadow, but by something deeper, a force I couldn't control. Sometimes, I feel its breath, almost surrounding me. A dark, menacing presence awaits. I can't do anything. I tried to get help, but when I told about what was happening, everyone just laughed and said I was tired. But I know I'm not tired. I can't escape, I can't hide. And when I realized that, I understood that it had become a part of me. An obsession that cannot be erased. I'm not myself anymore. Late one night, I was still sitting in the living room, unable to escape the feeling that someone was watching me. The apartment was empty, other than strange sounds from the ventilation system, and incessant scratching from behind the walls. I'm used to those sounds, but tonight there's something different. Not the noise of insects or the water system rattling like usual. Tonight, something really moved inside the walls. I heard a light tapping sound, then a rustling sound like someone was approaching. I stood up, looked around, there was nothing but suffocating silence. I approached the window, closed my eyes to listen carefully. Suddenly, I heard tiptoeing footsteps from somewhere near the bedroom. My heart pounding, I turned around and saw my own reflection in the window. But that figure is no longer me. The figure in the window stood motionless, while I was still moving. It stood there, like a vague shape, imperfect, strange. I tried to turn around, but couldn't stop looking at my shadow. My eyes were drawn to it. Suddenly, the figure moved. The head tilted slightly, like it was looking at me, but there were no eyes, just an invisible darkness. A bone-chilling cold ran down my spine. I turned around, closed my eyes and prayed that when I opened them, everything would be back to normal. But when I opened my eyes, the shadow was still standing there, still staring at me. I gulped, trying to regain my composure, but the footsteps still echoed in the apartment. Suddenly, the scratching sound came from the closet again. I rushed over and opened the closet door. Nothing. But I felt a strange presence inside. That shadow seemed to be waiting for me there, watching my every move. I looked around, then turned back, but once again, the diary was open on the table. I can't understand. I locked it, keeping the key in a drawer. I frantically checked every corner of the room, looked around every wall, but there was nothing suspicious. Finally, I just stood there, looked at the diary, turned another page, and read the latest red ink text. You can't run away from me. I'm here. And I'll always be here. My heart was pounding as if I was about to explode. I looked up, feeling something moving in the air, almost like an invisible wind swept past me. I turned around and saw that the wall behind the diary, where I had seen the cracks before, seemed to be changing, crumbling little by little, as if something was moving in there. Suddenly, I heard footsteps, small, gentle, but threatening footsteps. I couldn't see anyone, but the sound kept getting closer, lasting every second. My heart sank. I tried to stay calm, but the strange feeling couldn't escape me. I looked towards the bedroom door. The door is slowly opening, but it's not because of me. At this point, I couldn't do anything but rush into the bedroom, close the door and lock it tight. I sat down on the bed, my hands shaking as I pressed the phone. No signal. No incoming calls. I felt isolated, lost in my own apartment, where now it wasn't just me, but something I couldn't explain. I turned back to look at the shadow on the wall. It still stood there, silent, but this time, I felt a change. A slow movement, as if it was preparing to approach me. That shadow flickered, then gradually, it began to separate into unclear parts, dark fragments floating in space as if they were truly alive. Suddenly, the diary opened again in front of me. The pages were filled with flashing red ink. I couldn't look at it anymore, but I knew that I couldn't leave. I can't get out. And I can't stop feeling that presence gradually invading every part of me. At this moment, I am no longer me. The shadow merged with me, step by step. It won't leave, never. The feeling of insecurity always sticks with me, even when I try to avoid it. I couldn't stop worrying about the shadow that still haunted me, following me through every crack in the apartment. The strange noises from within the walls never stopped, and now they appeared not only at night, but also throughout the day. There was nothing I could do but continue with life, but that presence felt like a permanent ghost. Many times I thought about leaving, but I felt that if I did, that shadow would follow me wherever I went, as if it had become a part of me, a part of this world that I couldn't escape. One morning, as I was driving home, I glanced in the rearview mirror out of habit, but this time, I saw it. My reflection blurred and faded, replaced by a shadowy figure sitting behind me in the back seat. I was startled and turned around, but the chair was empty. My heart was beating so hard that I felt suffocated. I glanced again, but this time it wasn't just a shadow. It was moving, slowly, over the chair, and a faint face could almost be seen appearing behind me. The feeling of being watched for too long finally broke. I drove off the road, looking for a strange place to take refuge, but every time I drove, in every darkness of the night, I felt that presence somewhere nearby. When I got back to the apartment, I opened the door and walked inside, but this time, everything seemed different. My closet door was ajar, even though I was sure I had closed it. Gentle noises from behind the wall began to sound, gentle but haunting. I walked closer, and as soon as I touched the wall, I felt like something was moving inside. A hand, cold, reached out from the cracks. My heart was pounding, and I hurriedly backed away, but before I could do anything, the shadow appeared again. It's not my shadow. It was a shadowy shape, winding in the darkness, slowly stretching out across the room. I can't move. I can't breathe. That shadow seemed to be taking up space, step by step getting closer to me. The lines became clearer, the empty eyes looked straight at me from the darkness, as if they were waiting for me to realize something. I looked around, but there was no way out. All doors are tightly closed. I feel like I'm trapped in a space with no exit, where the darkness will never let me go. A low hiss sounded from the corner of the room, as if something was trying to break down the walls around me. I looked in that direction and saw the faint hand again, this time from within the wall. It stretched out, lengthening like a living nightmare, and I could see nothing but a dark void. I know that if I don't act immediately, I will be caught up in that shadow, as an inseparable part of it. I rushed out the door and ran down the hallway, but the strange feeling didn't let me go. I could hear scratching sounds from the walls around me, as if someone was running after me, not with footsteps but with scratches, ones that stretched through each layer of brick, through each layer of material. I turned to look, but there was no one, only darkness engulfing me. I hurriedly left the building, not bothering to turn back. My heart was still pounding in my chest, I couldn't stop, couldn't ignore what was happening. Part of me wanted to scream, but I was afraid that if I did, the darkness would swallow everything. It was waiting, quietly, in the walls, in the dark corners of my apartment. I walked, each step on the dense trail made my heart heavy. The flashlight in my hand emitted a weak light, not enough to illuminate everything within range. The silence of the forest suddenly became heavy, as if all sounds in this space had been swallowed. Every time the flashlight's light swept past, I saw strange silhouettes appearing among the tall trees, distorted shapes, curved faces like strange marks on the tree trunks. As I walked on, a cold wind blew, carrying a fishy smell, like iron, like old blood. I tried to ignore that uncomfortable feeling, but it still crept into every cell in my body. It seems that this space has a strange energy, it is alive, its heartbeat seems to be in harmony with my heart. Suddenly, I heard a noise, as soft as a whisper, like someone was standing behind me. I turned around, but saw nothing but the thick darkness of the forest. The flashlight I held was still not bright enough to illuminate everything clearly, and as I continued walking, those figures, those distorted faces, continued to appear even when I wasn't looking at them, as if watching me from afar. The whispering voice rang in my ears again, this time clearer, closer, as if someone was right behind me, whispering meaningless words that made me shiver. I turned around again, my heart pounding, but saw nothing but silence. I continued walking, but I felt a strange pull. It wasn't strong, but enough to make me feel like I was being pulled towards somewhere. I shook my head, telling myself that I was just tired and stressed, but as soon as I glanced through the tall trees, I saw a figure pass by quickly, just for a moment, but it was not an ordinary figure. I broke into a cold sweat, and in that moment, I suddenly realized that I was no longer alone. This space, this forest, seems to have another presence besides me. I felt it clearly when the tree branches twisted above my head, forming strange shapes. It was as if they were looking down at me, watching me, and I was just a tiny object in this dark universe. My flashlight suddenly went out, the light went out leaving me in complete darkness. At that moment, I not only felt the presence, but also felt the tree branches, the wind, all playing with me. I grabbed the flashlight tightly and turned it back on, but when the light came out, I only saw distorted shapes around me. Shapes like blurry hands, faces with no eyes, but sinister smiles, were all looking at me, from the trees, from the invisible walls in this space. It feels like I'm being watched from all sides, and there's no way out. I continued walking, even though my feet wanted to stop, but the shadow, that presence kept chasing me, not leaving me alone. Then suddenly, a loud noise rang out from behind, as if a wooden door was closing forcefully. I turned around, but saw nothing but silence. That shadow appeared again, this time not in the mirror, but right before my eyes. A blurry figure, a face with no eyes, no mouth, just a cruel smile. I tried to run, but my feet were frozen. Everything around me began to wobble, as if the space was changing, not because I was moving, but because it was changing in ways I couldn't understand. A giant shadow suddenly stretched out from behind me, covering everything. I felt like I was being pulled into it, unable to escape, unable to call for help. I gasped, trying not to be swallowed by the darkness, but a fierce wave came, swallowing everything. I sat there, breathing heavily, my body as if tied tightly to the chair, my hands drenched in sweat, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my wrists ached. Only when the headlights illuminated the road ahead did I feel a little safe, but this feeling didn't last long. The light flashing in the darkness constantly reminded me that something was still watching me, not only in the mirror but in every wind, every shadow covering the road. The whispers never stopped, they crept through every space, wrapping themselves around me like something invisible, unable to escape. The feeling of being watched is increasingly evident. Despite the comfort of the car, the safe seat, I knew that I was not completely safe. Every time I looked in the rearview mirror, I felt my heart beat harder, a wave of air congestion that made it hard to breathe. But there is nothing in the mirror but darkness, but emptiness. Yet, I can't stop looking back. As if there was someone, or something, still standing right behind me. If I just turned around, it would appear. The feeling of being followed didn't lessen as I drove. I began to feel a coldness in the air, something unnatural was covering me. Every time I glanced in the mirror, the darkness behind the car made me shiver. The night seemed endless, and that presence, in the background, was still waiting. When I got home, I could hardly believe my tired legs. I stepped out of the car and felt the cold of the night creep into my skin. It feels like I just escaped a nightmare, but I can't forget what happened. My door closed, I felt safe as I closed it, but as soon as I put the key in the lock, an indescribable feeling filled my chest. I turned on all the lights in the house, trying to dispel the cold feeling from outside. But the darkness still seemed to surround me, refusing to let go. I heard a slight noise in the living room, as if someone was walking in the room, but I didn't see anyone. I cannot determine. Part of me wanted to check it out, but I was afraid I wouldn't like what I saw. My feet felt like they were glued to the floor. I carefully moved across the room, each step inaudible because I knew that, if I wasn't careful, those things would mess me up. I didn't dare look at the walls for too long, as if distorted shapes would reappear, with unclear faces, thin, threatening arms reaching out from the peeling paint of the house. But then, when I passed the living room window, suddenly a strong breeze blew in, causing the curtains to move slightly. I closed my eyes for a second, trying to calm my breathing. When I opened my eyes, I saw a blur passing through the glass window. I turned back to look, my heart sank. A silhouette glimpsed in the weak light of the streetlight outside. I don't dare think about it anymore, because every time I think about it, it becomes clearer and clearer, and the more I feel the terrifying truth that I am not alone in this house. There was a light knock on the living room window. Even though it was only a small sound, it was enough to wake me up. I stood still, my hand trembling as I held the phone, but I didn't dare call anyone. I'm afraid that if I do that, they won't believe me. I walked closer to the window, trying to look through the curtains but couldn't see anything but darkness. I know, I shouldn't do that, but I do it because I feel that presence waiting somewhere. Suddenly, I heard another noise. Not from outside, but from inside the room. There was a gentle stirring sound, as if someone was moving right through the darkness. That feeling became stronger and stronger. I can't breathe normally anymore. My breathing stopped. Suddenly, the light of my flashlight went out, and I was plunged into darkness, seeing nothing but strange noises that kept ringing. The whispers were back, clearer than ever, echoing in my ears, as if they were invading my mind, taking over my every thought. That shadow, that presence I had felt, was no longer far away. It's right here, in my own house, watching me, waiting for me. In the darkness, I could see a faint glow reflecting from the moonlight shining through the window, creating an eerie feeling, like someone was sitting in that armchair. My eyes started moving restlessly, trying to figure out if anything was out of the ordinary, but I couldn't stop. Soft creaking sound sounded like someone was shifting in that chair, like an invisible creature was occupying it. I tried to breathe deeply, telling myself that it was just the sound of old wood creaking due to temperature changes or the expansion of the material. But the feeling in my heart grew heavier and heavier, as if a cold wind ran down my spine every time I heard that sound. Suddenly, I heard a louder noise, as if someone was actually sitting down on the couch. That chair seemed to swallow the air, and I felt like it was slowly sucking my energy. I couldn't resist curiosity and fear, and wondered if there was something on the chair, something that had never been seen before. I approached the chair, feeling tension rising with every step. The lights in the living room were now only dim, not enough to illuminate the entire space. I stopped in front of the armchair and touched the cold wooden armrest. A numbness spread through my body as I noticed something inexplicable. The chair seemed to get warmer and warmer, as if someone had just left. Suddenly, the chair shook slightly, and I felt my hand being pulled back as if there was a strong pull. I quickly withdrew my hand and backed away, but something indescribable made me stand still, unable to walk. From the armchair, I could hear a soft hissing sound like a faint breath. I felt an undeniable presence, as if someone was standing right behind me. In that moment, I heard a whisper. It's not clear, but I can feel its closeness. Run, the voice said in my head, and it didn't sound like a warning, but like an urge, as if someone knew I was staying. Suddenly, I felt a cold rush through me, and my body couldn't move. I took a step back, trying to turn my head away, but as soon as I touched the doorknob to leave the room, the couch made a loud noise, like someone stood up and walked out of it. The living room door suddenly slammed shut, as if some invisible force was blocking me from going out. Everything around me went dark, and I heard the whispering again, this time not just from the chair, but from the whole space around me. I feel trapped in an unreal space, unable to escape. Dark shadows drifted through the corners of the room. Every time I looked, they disappeared, leaving only an inexplicable feeling. Those figures, I'm sure they are watching me, are sneaking into every corner of the house, waiting until I no longer have the strength to face them anymore. Everything around me is no longer the same as before. The feeling that I thought was safe no longer existed. Now I was left with a heavy feeling, as if the presence of something invisible, but always threatening to follow me in the dark. That old couch, that musty smell, all combined to create a terrible cycle that I couldn't escape. Every night, when I tried to sleep, I heard whispers, saw silhouettes, felt that presence as if it was slowly taking over my space. Just like that, I can't escape this vicious cycle, and the worst thing is that I don't know what I will face next. Trapped, it all haunts me like an endless nightmare. My heart was pounding, as if something was breathing in the air around me. The hissing sounds from the armchair were like the signs of an unseen creature, waiting for something. This feeling was surreal, as if the armchair held a secret that I couldn't explain. Every time I looked at it, I felt like eyes were watching me. The dents in the cushions looked like someone had just sat down. Whenever I glance at the living room, I see the armchair again, but this time it's not just a piece of furniture. It was as if there was a strange power, a gravitational pull that I couldn't explain, but it was making me feel like a guest in my own home. One evening, as I sat in my chair, soft sounds sounded from behind, and the atmosphere around me seemed to change. I didn't dare turn back immediately, but when I did, I noticed a new dent had appeared in the mattress. It wasn't a normal dent like when I sat down, but more like someone who had just stood up, leaving an indelible impression. I took a step back, my eyes still following the chair. That perfume smell appeared again, this time stronger than ever, filling the living room space. That smell was like something very old, like the smell of relatives who had passed away long ago, the smell of the past that could not escape from this space. I tried many ways to solve that armchair problem. I've cleaned cleaned it, changed its position, but the dent still won't go away. Every time I thought I was done, the chair returned to its original position, as if an invisible force was controlling it. Then one night, as I was sitting in my chair, I felt myself suddenly pulled toward the couch. It was a powerful force, as if someone was sitting right behind me, pushing me forward. A cold feeling spread from behind me, and I turned around, only to see that the armchair was no longer in its original position but was tilted slightly towards me. My eyes widened, and a feeling of fear rose. I couldn't take my eyes off the chair. A dry crack sounded, as if someone was twisting the chair. I stood up, my hands were shaking, and I couldn't understand why the chair made me feel this way. It seems that this chair is not an ordinary item. It wasn't just part of the room, but part of something larger that I couldn't explain. The feeling was pervasive, as if the chair was absorbing all the energy around it, and I couldn't stop. Every step I took, I felt like someone was watching me from that armchair, silently, like a ghost in this house. The constant tension in my body. Every time I enter the living room, I feel that invisible presence, the armchair waiting, quietly, but unable to be ignored. The nights became longer, and I couldn't sleep deeply anymore. I just listened to strange sounds from the chair, sounds as if someone was sitting there, but it wasn't me. One night, when I woke up from inexplicable sounds, I saw that armchair again, sitting and waiting in the weak light from outside the window. At that moment, I felt a cold wind from behind, as if someone was standing right behind me. I turned around, but there was no one. I suddenly remembered the look of relief on the face of the person selling the chair. He might have known something I didn't understand, something I didn't want to touch. I began searching in old books and documents about supernatural phenomena, about cursed objects, items that could contain a soul or some strange force. And then, I found some suggestions, stories about old armchairs, antique items that not everyone dares to bring home. These stories show that these items can carry souls and indelible memories. Fear began to eat away at me. I wasn't just afraid of the armchair anymore, I was also afraid of the things it carried, the shapes and sounds. I didn't dare sit on it anymore, I just let it stand still, facing the window. But I couldn't help but feel that the chair was watching me, as if it was waiting for me to turn around and acknowledge its existence. Every night, I try to sleep, but I can't get a full night's sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest, and I always had the feeling that the couch was moving, even though no one was touching it. Every morning, I wake up, look into the living room, and see the chair is still there, but that strange feeling never goes away. Then one night, when I decided to face the chair, I walked up to it and put my hand on the armrest. I felt a shiver run down my spine, as if someone was standing right behind me. But when I turned around, there was only empty space, and the armchair was still standing, unchanged. But this time, I heard a sigh, very soft, as if the chair was breathing. I can't bear it anymore. I ran out of the apartment, leaving that chair behind, leaving it alone in the dark. But no matter where I go, no matter how hard I try to get away, I can't escape the feeling that the armchair is watching me, waiting, and one day, I will have to return to face it. Noise again, but that feeling still doesn't go away. The room became strangely quiet, but I couldn't escape the feeling that something was waiting, just quietly observing me from behind. The room's dim light shone on old objects, and I kept imagining that the light was casting wandering shadows, as if this room was living and breathing with me. One night, after I had left an old candle in the garage, I began to feel that the room was tightening around me. The shadows seemed to become longer and move strangely, like someone was secretly following me. I couldn't concentrate on anything, be it the TV or books, my attention always returning to the armchair that scared me, like a shadow lurking behind it. Then one night, I decided to try something I had never done before. I walked into the garage, where the candelabrum was placed behind a cabinet. I looked into the candle cup, seeing nothing out of the ordinary, but when I turned around, a stinging sound rang out from inside the room. A metallic clang from the corner of the house rang out so clearly that I could sense the unrest simmering beneath the quiet surface. These noises were not wind noises, not animal sounds, but a deliberate sound, as if calling me. My heart pounded as I turned back to look at the couch. Pale light from the house lamps shone into the corners of the room, casting long, distorted shadows. I walked closer, trying to find out if there was anything strange in the room, but nothing but a silence enveloped me. I sat back, feeling the heavy air around me, as if something invisible was pushing me out of my seat. Suddenly, a gentle sigh sounded from behind. That feeling made me stiff, my body was cold, but I didn't dare turn around. The atmosphere became oppressive and I felt a presence in the room, something invisible but present in the space. I stood up and walked out, deciding not to return to the living room. Every step echoed in my head, and the atmosphere in this house became more uncomfortable than ever. It seemed like something was always watching me, and I couldn't help but feel that way. That feeling was no longer a temporary fear but a constant presence, as if I was no longer in control of my own space. At that moment, I realized something. The armchair wasn't just a piece of furniture, it was part of something bigger, something I couldn't understand. And no matter what I tried, I couldn't escape the feeling of being surrounded by inexplicable darkness. Surprised to see the umbrella right in front of the main door. My heart pounded, a feeling of paralysis and fear rose within me. It was waiting for me, as if someone was watching my every step. I stood still, unable to move for a moment, only the light of the streetlight weakly shone down on the umbrella lying there, like an irrefutable warning. The sleepless nights continued to drag on. I kept imagining that I could do something about it, to escape this inexplicable presence. But every time I think I'm closer to a solution, the umbrella appears in a place I never expected. As a challenge, it is not just an item, but part of something larger, something unpredictable. I don't dare call anyone for help anymore. Everything I said about the armchair and the umbrella made me feel like I was going crazy. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something in this house that was clinging to me, following me like an inescapable ghost. Tiny noises, strange movements, and seemingly inexplicable sensations became a part of my daily life. Every time I entered the room, I saw something moving from one corner to another, like my own shadow, always watching and daring me not to resist. And then I understood, I couldn't run away forever. The truth is, these items, the armchair, the umbrella, they are not just old objects. They carry a power that I cannot control, and perhaps, they are destined to always be with me, forever. The strange feeling you described seems to have continued to grow and spread, making it inevitable that you will be haunted. The fact that the painting seems to have an invisible power following you is not just a feeling, but a phenomenon that you cannot explain, no matter how hard you try to find a logical reason. The haunting of the umbrella, the painting, and then hearing strange noises in your small house all create a series of events that make you feel like you are living in a parallel reality, where space and time are no longer stable. You begin to realize that every time you see faint images in a painting, or an inexplicable feeling of being watched, is a sign of a presence trying to convey a message that you cannot understand. Every time you try to escape it, everything comes back, as if the room, the painting, and even the old items in your house all carry with them an energy that cannot be escaped. The feeling of tension and fatigue with every little noise, seeing or not seeing, all only makes the fear increase day by day. Maybe the so-called presence comes not only from objects, but from your own mind, when anxiety and fear have turned every object in your house into things with invisible power. Every little noise, every faint light, or even the feeling that the painting is watching you may just be your reaction to your own fear. At this point, you may need to look back at your feelings and ask yourself, is this obsession created by you, or is there something that really exists that you cannot explain? The feeling you are experiencing is strange and stressful. Every event, every sound, every movement in the room seems to be pushing you into a spiral you can't escape from. The presence of the painting, the subtle changes you perceive in it, and the whisper-like sounds all evoke an inexplicable fear, which the more you try to avoid it, the more strongly you feel it. You felt a change in your space, it felt like something was waiting for you, and even though you tried to hide the painting, or even leave, it continued to haunt you. The painting is not just a mere decoration, but like a door to another dimension, whose presence you cannot control. All you can do now is try to maintain calm, but the anxiety is always present. The feeling of change, the movement in the painting, and the constant moaning in the night make it impossible for you to escape this obsession. The fact that you continue to live with it, avoiding it and not even daring to touch it, shows that there is something beyond your understanding, something that you cannot easily explain. The only thing you can do now is find solace in your daily routine, but even when you think you've escaped, the picture is always present in your head. Maybe, part of you feels that if you don't face it, you'll never understand what's really going on. But at some point, you will have to choose whether to continue to avoid it, or one day, you will have to face the truth behind that picture. This is the end of the story. If you are still here, listening until the last moment, then I am truly grateful to you. Thank you for taking your valuable time to accompany me on this journey. Hopefully, even just a little, tonight's story has left something in you, maybe an emotion, a thought, or simply a feeling of being shared. Wishing you a peaceful night. See you again, in the next story.